Chapter 1399, Fortune. Chapter 1399, Fortune. People were still suspicious. They didn't know why Ming Hong hadn't possessed Audrey after he had swallowed Sing. He let Audrey's host soul stay. It was against his common sense. With his power after swallowing Sing, he could become the leading soul of the 7 brutal souls. If he could take Audrey's body, even though he couldn't get back to his peak of power, at least he could regain his freedom. He wouldn't be bound to this woman. This made them think a lot. But they knew one thing: from now on, Audrey was the brutal soul's new master. The souls that Sing had spent years refining were now her fortune. As long as Audrey wasn't really ignorant, she had the potential to one day reach Sing's level when he was still alive. If Audrey had excellent innate talent, she was going to progress fast, and it was going to be hard to predict her future attainment. The Soul Clan was one of the 7 great clans anyway. Sing was the commander of the Soul Clan, and his understanding of soul power Upanishad was clear and profound. These things now benefited Audrey, and they were great nutrients for her growth. The others looked at Audrey, yearning and complimenting. "Who is she? You know her?" Forefather Dragon Lizard understood and asked in astonishment. Tu Shi and Yun smiled. "The kid who came to talk to you about the soul-refining cauldron ambush is her man." "Yeah, we've met. This little girl is nice too. They are together," explained Yun. Forefather Dragon Lizard understood it now. He suddenly asked, "Oh right, where's that kid? I noticed that a masked woman from the Phantom Clan had chased after him. Why didn't he gather with us?" Listening to him, Tu Shi and Adam's group had noticed that. However, after a while, Tu Shi got an explanation for this. "Perhaps he's afraid that you have some other ideas." Forefather Dragon Lizard understood immediately. After a while, Forefather Dragon Lizard shook his head with a forced smile. "I put my hand on my chest and wonder myself. If he were here, it would be really hard to make a choice. He has fused with a wisp of his soul of the absolute beginning creature. If I refined him, I'm sure I would have been able to activate the memory in that soul and get dark energy to break through to the territory ancestor realm. Sigh, I've been stuck in this realm for a long time. I've seen it in my dreams too. He's a key to my breakthrough. He's right. He should stay away from me. I wonder if he can escape that phantom woman. She's really intimidating. In some aspects, she's stronger than Sing. We can fight against Sing equally, but she can subdue us right from the start. If Shi Yang hadn't struck her, we would have been confined in the Snow Lotus now," said Yun. "Indeed, we owe him a favor," Tu Shi contemplated, "then we should make it up with his woman. We should protect her while she's enhancing her realm and accommodating Sing's power. You guys take care of her. I'm going to find the soul-refining cauldron. Perhaps it's still here." Dragon Lizard suddenly thought of an idea. "Don't waste your efforts," Tu Shi laughed. "The soul-refining cauldron is a divine weapon from the absolute beginning era. If that Soul Clan expert dares to lend his cauldron, he won't be afraid of losing it. Don't think about it. The tamed divine weapon from the absolute beginning era can feel its master regardless of how far it is." Dragon Lizard hadn't given up on his idea yet. He ignored Tu Shi and flew toward his territory. The members of the Dragon Lizard clan slowly emerged from the caves in the Sea of Asteroids. When the battle began, Forefather Dragon Lizard had used his control power to Dragon Lizard Star to arrange them to safe areas to stay away from the battle. And now, after the battle had ended, Forefather Dragon Lizard called for his fellows. Those people received Forefather Dragon Lizard's orders and scattered to find the soul-refining cauldron. They hoped to see this divine weapon from the Soul Clan. Forefather Dragon Lizard landed and closed his eyes to sense. Then, he was shaken when he looked at an asteroid in the distance. That asteroid was shimmering. Although there was no one riding it, it was heading toward the Soul Clan. The asteroid had suppressed energy fluctuations as if they were a warning to anyone who had the guts to come near. Some members of the Dragon Lizard clan saw the flying asteroid. They were moved, so they wanted to stop it. "Get back here, all of you." Forefather Dragon Lizard screamed and called all of his fellows to get back. With a stern face, he said, "Its owner has it under control now. Don't go there to die." He was filled with fear, indeed. When the territory ancestor expert controlled the absolute beginning divine weapon, it could be very formidable. Since that person didn't use the cauldron to eliminate this area, he would have something that scared him. Perhaps because of the distance, he had to spend more energy for some other reasons. If Dragon Lizard clan members stopped the soul-refining cauldron and enraged the others, the Dragon Lizard clan would disappear from this vast sea of stars. Forefather Dragon Lizard understood the situation quickly. Sighing, he returned to the asteroid where Audrey was sitting. Together with Tu Shi and his wife, they watched Audrey. After a long time, Ming Hong, the brutal soul, had also gone into the vortex. Audrey's host soul returned to her soul altar and the vortex on her forehead disappeared. She finally opened her eyes. Congratulations, Yuna praised and smiled at her. With your cultivation base, if you're not disturbed, you will reach third sky of immortal realm soon. Haha, this time, you have the biggest fortune. If that kid knows you have such an auspicious chance, he will be very happy for you. Audrey knew what she had. Her cold face beamed strangely. Thank you. Her host soul had always paid attention to the surroundings. Thanks to Tu Shi and Yuna, Forefather Dragon Lizard didn't kill her. She had thanked them sincerely. Yeah, I was a little rash. I owe that kid too. If he hadn't broken that Phantom Woman's plan, we couldn't have killed Sing. Forefather Dragon Lizard hesitated for a while and then took out a pellet. He shot that pellet towards Audrey. It's an immortal pellet. This is because I am thankful to him. I hope that when you see him, you can tell him that I'm sorry. It's true that I did think about killing him to take his soul. Audrey was thrilled. Her shaking fingers wrapped around the magical pellet that had helped Shiyang enter the immortal realm. She knew that this pellet was made of a level 7 life star with billions of lives on it. Lizard had refined them personally. Also, this pellet was the focus of the Dragon Lizard clan's festival. She had never thought that Forefather Dragon Lizard would give her one. With those souls from Sing, your attainment in the future won't be ordinary. Even now, you're strong enough to defend yourself. In this sea domain of nihility, aside from some dangerous areas, you can travel around, smiled Yuna. Audrey held the immortal pellet tight. Her eyes twinkled as if she was considering something. After a while, she nodded to them and said, "See you later." She didn't explain anything or say more to Adams, Moshe before directly flying away. Countless souls moved under her feet and gave her a terrifying aura. Also, her energy fluctuations weren't less than the warriors at Immortal Realm. Forget it. I think she hates us too, Moshe forced a smile. At the critical moment, Adams had pointed Audrey out to save his life. Although he didn't create a hopeless situation for her, Adams' deed was wrong. Moshe and the others didn't have the face to go with Audrey, they could only see her leaving. Here, it's for you. Tu Shi thought for a while and then gave Moshe a jet black token. If the Heavenly Eye clan wants to depend on our Mysterious Sky clan, you can take this token to the Mysterious Sky clan. We will accommodate you. Listening to him, Ivelines, Adams, and Moshe were so thrilled. Moshe quivered while holding the token. Really? Our Heavenly Eye clan can come to depend on your Mysterious Sky clan? You really want to shelter us? To give that kid face, Tu Shi didn't conceal anything and spoke casually. Moshe, Ivelines, and Adams shivered. Then, they looked in the direction Shiyang had disappeared and thanked him inwardly. Usually, the 7 great clans would only accept second-class clans like the Water Tribe or the Dragon Lizard clan to be their vassals. The Heavenly Eye clan was just a third-class clan. They didn't have the qualifications to depend on the Mysterious Sky clan. If they wanted to do that, they had to be a second-class clan. If they became dependent on the Mysterious Sky clan, they would receive many benefits. Later on, when the Heavenly Eye clan had some disputes with the other clans, they could use the reputation of the Mysterious Sky clan to scare their opponents. If the Heavenly Eye clan got into a dangerous situation, they could call the Mysterious Sky clan for help. The Mysterious Sky clan wouldn't just sit and watch them die. They had to protect those people to ensure loyalty from other dependent clans. Even if it wasn't their wish, they could at least ensure that the Heavenly Eye clan wouldn't be hunted down to the last member. Most of the Heavenly Eye clan's enemies were the third-class clan. With the mysterious Sky clan as their background, it was going to be much easier for them to do many things. It had excited them more than having one immortal pellet from forefather Dragon Lizard. Tu Shi's promise was a safety assurance to their entire clan. They were wholeheartedly grateful for Shiyang. They knew that Tu Shi appreciated them because he wanted to give Shiyang face. Just a small clan. It's okay if they want to depend on our Dragon Lizard clan. Why do you need to make it so big? Forefather Dragon Lizard and Tu Shi landed on Dragon Lizard Star. Forefather Dragon Lizard asked because he couldn't understand Tu Shi's motive. Haha, you don't understand, Tu Shi smiled. If that kid knows we gave him face, he will have more good impressions of our mysterious Sky clan. Earning his good impression will be precious in the future. The good impression given to a territory ancestor realm expert will be more important than accommodating 100 Heavenly Eye clans. He still needs to experience a lot to reach the territory ancestor realm. I'm just afraid that he will be killed before he could even reach the bottleneck, snorted Forefather Dragon Lizard. Chapter 1400 Skull Island. Chapter 1400 Skull Island. At this moment, Shiyang was on edge between life and death. Shiyang had turned into a starlight beam and moved zigzag across the dark, cold sea domain of nihility. Sometimes he flashed and disappeared, crossing many blind corners of spatial blind spots. The masked woman couldn't figure out his location. Sometimes, the starlight disappeared as if it had mingled with the void in this vast sea or stars, leaving no trace. He didn't dare to stop and rest for even a second. The phantom masked woman was like his shadow that never left him. Every time he slightly relaxed his nerves, the shadow approached instantly. A cold energy that chilled his heart seeped over from a long distance. After each minute, Shiyang could feel the resentment and the murderous intention from the masked woman increase. The long pursuit didn't wear out her patience. It didn't make her think about giving it up. It only made her will stronger. Mwahaha, little brother, don't run. Jie promises to treat you well. You don't need to run across the entire sea. You are wasting your energy. Also, you're predestined to not be able to hide. How long can your cultivation base endure wasting energy? It'll drain one day. The masked woman giggled, her voice soft and tender. However, it was like a cold saber in Shiyang's ears. The masked woman of the Phantom clan massively resented Shiyang. Her laughter became more tender and charming with the hope of making Shiyang relax for a while. An expert with exquisite space power Upanishad was a nightmare to chase. Shiyang had a profound cultivation base. His power Upanishads, his resolution, his patience, and vigilance were all outstanding. After this perpetual pursuit, the masked woman also admired him. She was astounded because of his toughness and the pure, abundant energy he had. Shiyang obviously had just reached the immortal realm. With his current realm and power, he should have been drained to death during this long pursuit. However, until now, Shiyang was still vigorous like a dragon or a tiger. He didn't look like his power was about to run out. It surprised the masked woman a lot. She didn't know because of her massacre on Dragon Lizard continent that many hiding aliens were killed. Shiyang had taken in their essence chi after they died. The reason why Shiyang could endure the whole pursuit was because of the essence chi from the dead. His energy was still abundant and his god power ancient tree was still crystal and sparkling. Anyway, eventually, the refined energy from his acupuncture points was almost drained. As he didn't have time to gather energy or cultivate, he had only consumed energy all the time. Even if he had more energy, he could use it all in one day. Shiyang and the masked woman had come to the point where they competed with patience and endurance. When Shiyang found no more energy from the acupuncture points, he immediately swallowed 2 congealing spirit pellets that Yun had given him. When the pellets dissolved in his body, a new flow of energy flooded him. He became vigorous one more time. At the same time, he intended to show his whereabouts. Then, he tore the space curtain to teleport right after that. The masked woman looked so cold. When she found that Shiyang was running out of energy, he suddenly refilled it. This struck her confidence hard. Shi Yang had stealthily attacked her on Dragonstar Continent. The world within world explosions had damaged her Snow Lotus and consumed a large amount of her energy. After a long pursuit, she had consumed a lot of her god power. If she wasn't in third sky of immortal realm with profound and pure energy, she would not have endured until now. She wasn't content with this chase. Being an expert at the peak of immortal realm, she was using her best power to chase after a small warrior who had just entered the immortal realm. If she didn't succeed, it was going to humiliate her for the rest of her life. Thus, even if she had to endure more wounds, she still gritted her teeth to endure. She had to capture Shi Yang and then torment him to death. Shi Yang began to worry. The 2 congealing spirit pellets were his last methods. After he had used up the energy from the 2 pellets, he had to depend on the energy in his god power ancient tree to continue running away. Along his way, he needed to use a huge amount of energy for each teleport. If he didn't have the energy from the acupuncture points, he would have been drained to death already. Thus, seeing the masked woman chase behind him, he had to teleport all the time. If he didn't, she could catch up to him quickly. Feeling the god power draining, he knew that he couldn't dodge this kappa. It was just like what the masked woman had told him. When the Phantom Clan masked woman knew he had dark energy, she wanted to recruit him and make him the male guest of her Phantom Clan. However, as soon as she found that he had a wisp of a soul of an absolute beginning creature, she changed her mind. Just like Dragon Lizard, she was at the peak of immortal realm. She just needed to control dark energy to break through to territory ancestor realm. She just needed to kill Shi Yang and then refine him to stimulate the absolute beginning creature's soul. That's how she could seize the chance to enter the territory ancestor realm. It was much more attractive than taking him to the Phantom Clan and making him their distinguished guest. No matter what, Shi Yang had to run continuously. Otherwise, he would be killed and refined. The sea domain of nihility had countless asteroids, broken pieces of stars, cosmic dust, and debris everywhere. Shi Yang could see many pieces of broken continents. A massive island was flashing and floating in the dark void ahead of him. That island was pale white. When it emerged, it had some kind of energy that made it hide one more time. Shi Yang had good senses to capture strange things. He pondered and then accelerated toward that island. Piercing through a thick layer of pale white mist, he appeared in the atmosphere of the island. Shortly after, the gravity that was hundreds of times stronger applied to him. He felt grumblingly like a meteor on the island. He dug a cave on the island. Crawling out of the cave, he urged his power to move dozens of meters. Looking at the vast land, the mountains, and ditches, he was frightened. This island was so massive it was around 10 times bigger than the immortal island. At first glance, the entire island was filled with wild bones. Shi Yang could see humanoid skeletons, beast skeletons, and alien skeletons. Most of them weren't complete. They were smashed into pieces and scattered around the island. Vaguely, some of them had created some sort of formation. When Shi Yang was observing the surroundings, the masked woman from the Phantom Clan reached this island. The island looked different in her eyes. She concentrated on it and found the entire island a massive skull moving in the void. It had 2 hollow eye sockets and a massive mouth, which were 3 bottomless caves. Dated by Novelful. Commander, the massive skull island shook and released strange and evil waves of energy. It looked like the skull was adjusting something to prevent people from seeing it. The Skull Island of the Whitebone Clan. The masked woman was surprised and hesitant. She knew that this Skull Island was the territory of the Whitebone Clan. If she intruded it, she could cause a dispute and offend the members of the Whitebone Clan. However, she wasn't content. She had chased after him for a long time. She wasn't going to let him go from here. After hesitating for a while, she called sternly, "My G of the Phantom Clan. I want to land on the island for a matter. I wonder which friend from the Whitebone Clan is staying on this island." She revealed her identity and called toward the floating Skull Island. Lit. A charming woman, concubine or female entertainer. The Skull Island was still flashing. The empty sockets shimmered with bizarre lights. No one answered her. Then, "I'm sorry for offending." My G thought and then called out gently, She headed toward the massive Skull Island. Through the pale white mist, her sexy body landed on the island. Although the gravity here was hundreds of times stronger, she was still floating and slowly descending like a fairy. Her cold eyes raked around to search. She didn't see Shiyang. She snorted and used her soul consciousness to check. Her soul consciousness was like a thick mesh net lowering from the sky to cover every small corner. The island appeared as a skull with countless piles of white bones in different sections. At this moment, while Mai Ji was releasing her soul consciousness to search, her soul energy seemed to activate some kind of gravitational formation. She saw 3 spots where white bones with strange and malicious aura shimmering gathered. The hollow sockets of the massive skull suddenly sparkled in white, eccentric lights. It flashed and then disappeared. "I'm here just to find a person. I'm not going to disturb your cultivating time. Please forgive me." Mai Ji seemed afraid of the Whitebone clan a lot. While using her soul consciousness to search, she screamed tenderly to show that she didn't have any evil intention and that she had no choice but to land on the island. Swish! Mai Ji's sexy body swayed and then flew toward a pile of white bones. Boom! 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 The white bones were smashed and it revealed Shiyang. He immediately urged his power Upanishad to teleport. Boom! A strange energy grumblingly released from the thick white mist above his head. The space was bound to so many layers of clouds. Shiyang's space power Upanishad was restricted. He couldn't build a space bridge to teleport. He stood up and looked at Mai Ji coming with a faint smile. His eyes suddenly filled with brutal and savage intention. "Then I should risk my life in a nice battle." Roaring like a caged animal, his god power surged all. At the same time, he stimulated the power of his blood. The bone wings appeared on his back while armor with spikes covered his body. Shiyang decided not to retain anything in this battle. He was going to urge the Death Power Upanishad and Swallow Power Upanishad to the acme. To save his life, he wasn't going to hesitate to pay any price. A brutal, murderous aura shot out of his body. While his thoughts were changing, the Death and Life Power Upanishad circulated first. Shortly after, the soul burial field of Death Power Upanishad was created. Magically, billions of twinkling light dots flew out from countless pieces of bones. They were like fireflies or raindrops that congregated on Shiyang. Mai Ji swiftly came forward. With begrudging eyes, she couldn't help but furrow her brows. "I said I don't want to disturb you. I'm here to capture this person." She thought that the members of the Whitebone clan on this Skull Island suddenly took action. She didn't think that the light dots from the Whitebones were related to Shiyang. There was no sound replying to her from the Skull Island. Mai Ji snorted. She didn't say more. Her agile, while hand snatched over Shiyang's head like a venomous snake. The chilling aura like a glacier stormed and seeped into Shiyang's body. Shortly after, his body began to freeze. Chapter 1401 – A Little Skeleton. Chapter 1401 – A Little Skeleton. Billions of light dots flew out of the white bones and flooded Shiyang. The cold, sinister energy dots hovered around Shiyang and merged with the soul burial field, giving him the ability to control this new energy. At the same time, Mai Ji of the Phantom Clan took action. Her white hand snatched toward him from a distance like an agile snake. The cold energy seeped into Shiyang's soul altar and made his entire body make crack sounds. He could even see his body slowly freeze and frost. The space around him was frozen while the white bones underneath had become crystal-like ice sticks. Everything was frozen under Mai Ji's power. Mai Ji was a member of the Phantom Clan. She was born with a gift of a mind-controlling technique. While she was talking to someone, her laughter or even a wince was enough to enchant and capture the other's mind. Her hot, sexy body made people think that she had lived a life of debauchery. In her nature, she was cold and dark. She also cultivated ice power Upanishad. However, she just needed to use the soul-enchanting technique to kill her enemies. When she attacked Shiyang, because of his tough will and the Origin's flames, she had to use her real power Upanishad. Crack, crack, crack. The soul of freezing echoed continuously. Mai Ji's eyes were so cold and her voluptuous body was filled with the extremely cold energy. Sizzle. 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 Billions of twinkling dots twirling around Shiyang had become mist under the cold energy. A thick mist now covered Shiyang. However, Shiyang's eyes were bright inside the mist. His mind and soul weren't affected at all. His sword-like fingernails suddenly received energy from the mist when his power Upanishad switched. Swish. His hands tore the mist. The dead silent energy bloomed from his fingertips. 10 pale flames that were like soul-taking chains attacked and attempted to coil my G's jade-like neck. They didn't even care about layers of her cold energy. My G's eyes were so cold as she talked. I am my G from the Phantom Clan. I've made myself clear that I don't want to trouble you. If you help this kid deal with me, don't blame me for not giving face to your Whitebone clan. The aura from the 10 pale flames was the unique aura of the Whitebone clan. It made her think that someone was helping Shiyang discreetly. That's how he could expose such powerful attacks. Then, my G spurted an ice lotus. The lotus had icy, crystal petals. Inside the petal, some sort of white flames were flickering as if they had life energy. The 10 pale flames wanted to avoid the ice lotus, but the flames inside the petals had attracted them. Unexpectedly, they got rid of Shiyang's soul control and went to the ice lotus. The ice lotus then clinked and murmured like a running stream. The 10 white flames subsided and slowly disappeared. Kill. A red sea gushed out from Shiyang's chest like a giant dragon soaring out of the abyss. The blood-red sea suddenly condensed into a bloodthirsty 100-meter-tall demogon. Its body was like a mountain with a pair of red iron, anchor-like claws. Its claws then pounded on my G's head. My G's bright eyes were frightened. She looked at the demogon made of the bloody sword and was panic-stricken. It was the secret technique of the Dark Demon clan. Who was this kid? How has he mastered all the strange and rare techniques? She rose one hand to grab something and a radiant ice mirror emerged. The ice mirror reflected countless icy light beams that shot away like ice sabers. The giant claw of the demogon slashed on the ice mirror. A loud clang boomed, but the ice mirror stood still. My G didn't look at the mirror. Her snake-like body twisted a little. Then, all of a sudden, the ice walls were conjured beneath, above, and around Shiyang, pressing on him and confining him. A lot of tricks. You have dark energy, but you don't know how to use its real power. Otherwise, it would not be easy to capture you at all. My G sneered and walked towards Shiyang, placing one of her ivory hand on the ice wall. The cold energy increased several times. The ice walls were now connected to each other, forming a cube where Shiyang was frozen inside. His skeleton, body, nerves, consciousness, and even his train of thought stopped. His soul altar was freezing altogether. He became an alive ice sculpture. My G looked content. She exhaled in relief and then mumbled, "My job is done here. I won't bother you more. Friend, if you have time to visit the Phantom Clan, my G will welcome you personally." She looked at the clear void of the Skull Island and used her Phantom Clan's etiquette to bow and bid farewell. Afterward, she placed one hand on the massive ice cube and was about to leave the Skull Island. After she had left this place for a long distance, she was going to slowly refine Shiyang, which would give her a chance to enter the territory ancestor realm. While she was about to leave, if someone could see from the outside, he would see a faint halo on the hollow sockets of the Skull Island. The skull seemed to wake up and regain life. Swoosh, swoosh. 2 snow-white bone dragons around hundreds of meters long flew out of the skull's hollow eye sockets. The dragons were covered with white bones. Their eyes in the heads had strange and precious stones inlaid in their white bodies. As soon as they flew out, they aimed at my G. One of the snow-white dragons opened its mouth to gush out a deep green stream that smelled sour and pungent. Apparently, it was extremely toxic. The other dragon fluttered its bone wings and created 2 tornadoes with my G as their target. My G felt cold inwardly. She couldn't help but scream. Our Phantom Clan and your Whitebone Clan have never offended each other, but you're attacking me. Do you want to start a dispute between our 2 clans? There was no answer from the Skull Island. My G took a deep breath. She pulled herself together and became so stern. She had to drop Shiyang down first. The dangerous aura that the two white bone dragons had given her wasn't less than Tu Shi and his wife. Moreover, she knew that the bone slaves that the white bone clan refined didn't suffer from pain or death. They could even destroy their own bodies. They were terrifying puppets, indeed. If she was at her peak condition, even if she had to grab Shi Yang with one hand, she wouldn't be afraid of the two bone dragons. But right now, Shi Yang's world-within-world shattering had damaged her on Dragon Lizard Star. And after a long pursuit, her condition wasn't really good. She didn't have even half of the energy she had accumulated. Thus, she couldn't keep Shi Yang on her side and leave while fighting against another enemy. Shi Yang was now an ice sculpture imprisoned inside the ice cube. His soul and body were all frozen. In his body, only one spot had energy that fluctuated. It was the tear of heaven flames. The sea of fire created by the heaven flames had never extinguished. It slowly burned and woke up his co-soul. They warmed and gradually awakened the frozen, second soul. The two bone dragons stormed towards Mai Ji with a river of toxins and tornadoes. Mai Ji had urged her power Upanishad. The icy chi twirled around her. The ice sabers, icicles, swords, and even the snowstorm were conjured. However, she could only resist the two dragons. Her new fearsome mask was torn and so were her clothes. Her glowing white skin that looked like shining jade was exposed. It was too bad that the dragons didn't take in or admire her marvelous sexy body. Shi Yang could do that, but he was still frozen. The massive, abyss-like mouth of the Skull Island strangely moved. A small figure crawled out of the mouth and jumped towards Mai Ji. After one jump, he could glide through the distance that even the bone dragons couldn't fly through. The bone feet landed grumblingly and shook the entire Skull Island. It was a little skeleton that was around 4 feet. Each bone of this skeleton was shining and transparent like a crystal. The skeleton was glowing and it looked pretty bizarre. To the White Bone Clan, with this height, this skeleton was just a child. It was going to need a long time to reach adulthood. The skeleton was moving at breakneck speed. It was closer to Mai Ji after each second. The White Bone Clan was a unique clan. The children in their clan weren't born in their mother's womb. Each child of this clan was refined by its parents. The parents would gather many pieces of white bone. The white bones formed the skeletons of the powerful creatures. Bone Pond in the White Bone Clan was used to refine them. This process took hundreds of years or even 10,000 years. Taking in the energy from billions of pieces of bones submerged in the bone pond, a new child of the White Bone Clan slowly formed. After the bone body was formed, its parents carried out soul intercourse, which would use their soul essence and energy to create a life seed. Then, that life seed would be planted into the bone body. After many years, the bone body and the seed fused together. Then, a new child of the White Bone Clan was born. It was true that it was extremely tough for the White Bone Clan to reproduce. It would take several thousand years or even 10,000 years to give birth to a child in the White Bone Clan. As it was so difficult to give birth to children in the White Bone Clan, of course, the newborn babies were very different from ordinary people. Normally, if the parents of the kid were powerful enough and they had prepared rare but precious bones for it, when the bone body was formed, it was already intimidating. It could even be as strong as an immortal realm expert. Also, if the parents had powerful and profound souls, the life seed created from their soul intercourse was extremely extraordinary. Normally, when a child of the White Bone Clan was born, it had already reached King God Realm. If its parents were more formidable, it could reach Ethereal God Realm or Original God Realm. And it wasn't strange for an incipient God Realm baby to be born after the life seed was activated. The white bone child was galloping towards Mai Ji. There were so many mysterious and magical absolute beginning symbols on its little skull. On its way, it had grumblingly stomped on the bone ground of the Skull Island, which was like a terrifying earthquake. The power from this pair of bony feet was actually so formidable that even the immortal realm experts couldn't have such power. This little skeleton had reached at least the immortal realm. It was small but its realm was very high. There was no need to wonder how fierce its parents were. Chapter 1402, A Turn for the Better. Chapter 1402, A Turn for the Better. Boom. A small, white crystal skeleton descended from the sky and steadied between the two skeleton dragons. The bone dragons furiously attacked my G and suddenly retracted, crouching like two nice hounds by the skeleton's feet, their rolling eyes servile. My G was bewildered. Her bright eyes looked surprised. She looked at the little skeleton of the Whitebone clan, her charming face extremely stunned. She knew how the Whitebone clan members produced the next generation. She understood clearly that even if the Whitebone clan parents were at the peak of immortal realm, they couldn't give birth to such a terrifying child. She could feel the tremendous energy from this little buddy from the Whitebone clan. His energy fluctuated and made her heart beat anxiously faster. My G became frightened. She was so frightened when she looked at the Skull Island underneath. She became gingerly and didn't dare to act rashly anymore. The parents that could refine such a formidable child had unimaginably profound realms. If this sort of character was on the island, they were likely the most powerful warriors of the Whitebone clan. The white crystal little skeleton didn't have a bit of flesh on it. Its eyes were inlaid with star-like precious gemstones. One of the two gemstones was white and the other was red. They separately released burning and freezing energies. As the skeleton was gazing at her, my G was scared. The small skeleton had a heart core, which was something unknown but illuminating. The heart core was the source of energy of the Whitebone clan. It functioned like the god power ancient tree of the other races. It was really complicated to create the heart core. It was also related to the stimulation of the life seed and the materials needed to refine the child. The energy in this little skeleton seemed to be endless. My G thought that this kid was mysterious and dangerous at the same time. Crack, crack. The two dragons smacked their jaws as if they were little puppies. They twisted their bodies to describe something to the little skeleton, and the bones on their bodies even shook. The star-like eyes of the little skeleton twinkled as it was listening to the bone dragons. Then, it looked at Shiyang. Fire burst out of its eye. It was dazzling and it immediately aimed at the ice cube. The ice cube created by my G's cold energy was like snow that was roasted on a fire. It melted down immediately. Shiyang resumed his spirit and body functions. He looked at the small skeleton and screamed in fear. With his profound power Upanishads, he could have a precise understanding of lunar stars and solar stars. The white and red eyes of the skeleton were the lunar nucleus and the solar nucleus respectively. Shiyang could feel the hot energy from the red eye, which was not less than the combination of 10 suns. It was extremely formidable. He believed that if this little skeleton detonated the solar energy in its left eye, it was enough to burn hundreds of life stars into ashes or turn immortal realm experts into charcoal. The intimidation of that scorching energy had frightened the heaven flame inside his brain. Under such a look, he felt his blood evaporating. And the other was controlling its power precisely. Similarly, the right eye of the little skeleton was made of a lunar nucleus. It was cold and filled with yin and some marvelous powers. He's the enemy that I have to kill. Child, are your parents here? I am my G of the Phantom clan. I don't want to create any misunderstanding with your Whitebone clan. I was wrong when I've entered your precious land. But I was begrudging. Please. My G immediately used her soft voice to explain when she saw the little skeleton rescuing Shiyang from the ice cube. At this moment, her mask was torn and her clothes were ragged. Her delicate waist and creamy thighs were discernible. Her assets could boil any man's blood. However, it didn't work on the little skeleton as its eyes moved swiftly and focused on Shiyang. It didn't even mind my G's explanation. Shiyang was filled with surprise. He could feel the subtle and marvelous aura from the skeleton, which was creeping on him as if it was trying to pull the thread of his cocoon. This kid of the Whitebone clan was using some special technique to check Shiyang's secrets. That strange energy moved around his veins, sea of consciousness, and soul altar. My G's charming face grimaced. The feeling of being ignored made her feel insulted as she was used to being the focus of the crowd. However, she didn't dare to do anything. She wasn't so sure if this little skeleton's parents were on this Skull Island, too. If they were, their realm was likely higher than hers. She couldn't recognize them and she didn't have the power to resist. Asterisk 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 asterisk. After a while, the little skeleton pointed at Shi Yang while making some strange noises as if it was talking about something. Shi Yang was bewildered. He shook his head continuously. I don't understand. The memories of languages from the Heavenly Eye clan didn't contain this language. Apparently, the skeleton wasn't using a common language. Shi Yang didn't understand anything. Mai Ji of the Phantom clan was also puzzled. Her beautiful, exquisite eyebrows furrowed. After a while, her eyes brightened. The language of the previous generation of the Whitebone clan. She placed an emerald ring on her forehead. A green light rippled from the ring and disappeared into her head. He's my captive. Mai Ji immediately understood what the little skeleton said. She was enraged. You want him to go with you? Why do you have to ask that? She was speaking a common language, but the small skeleton apparently understood her. Its line of sight moved from Shi Yang to Mai Ji. Asterisk 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 asterisk. The skeleton spoke in the strange language again. It sounded angry as light rolled in its eyes. Mai Ji wore a cold face and shook her head continuously. No. He's my captive. I don't care what you want. I have to take this man away. You little kid, don't you understand? Have your parents taught you how to behave? The little skeleton was just angry, but it didn't do anything. However, when Mai Ji mentioned its parents, she seemed to have ignited its wrath. The skeleton let out a low roar. The terrifying energy fluctuations inside the Skull Island seemed to activate with the mysterious formation in the skeleton's eyes. The mysterious symbols on the skeleton's skull twinkled like stars. Then, brilliant, star-like spots appeared on its skeleton. They were like its acupuncture points. Shi Yang gawked and his eyes radiated the magical light. He cultivated star power Upanishad, so at first glance, he knew that those were the real stars. They were refined stars that functioned as the acupuncture points of this little skeleton. At this moment, so many twinkling stars began to diffuse the surging star energy. Unexpectedly, this little bony thing had mastered the star power Upanishad like him. What do you want? Mai Ji was also frightened. Actually, she wasn't afraid of this little skeleton. She was scared of the members of the ancient Whitebone clan who could be properly hiding in this Skull Island. This little skeleton spoke a language of the Whitebone clan's previous generation that no one used now. From this point, his parents was likely terrifyingly ancient too. If they were hiding in the Skull Island, let alone Mai Ji, even if her clan's territory ancestor realm expert came here, she couldn't do anything. Swish, swish, swish. The bunches of light fell like meteors. They came out from different areas of the Skull Island, and as the skeleton was guiding them, they moved toward Mai Ji. Mai Ji was panic-stricken when the lights focused on her. She didn't hesitate to take out the snow lotus to cover her body entirely. At the same time, she urged her ice power Upanishad to freeze her own body. When the ice mountain emerged, her sexy body was preserved inside the peak of the ice mountain. The skeleton hissed strangely and guided the starlight winding around the ice mountain peak like chains. Right after that, a scarlet light column shot out from its left eye and attacked the peak. The ice on the mountain peak melted fast under the scorching heat of the red light. Those meteor-like lights were ready to attack right when the peak all melted. Mai Ji screamed inwardly. If she was in her best condition, she wouldn't have been so passive in dealing with this kind of attack. However, at this moment, she could only defend and she couldn't spend extra energy to counterattack. She knew that unless the energy of the scarlet light was drained, she would never be able to get rid of this peak safely. The little skeleton didn't mind her at all. Seeing her confined for the time being, its anger subsided. Then, it turned to Shi Yang and gestured while speaking its alien language. Shi Yang could see the begging gleam in its little eyes. It seemed to treat Shi Yang a lot better than it treated Mai Ji. I don't understand what you're saying. But it seems like you want to take me somewhere. Okay, no problem, said Shi Yang nonchalantly. This little member of the Whitebone clan wasn't weaker than my Ji, and this was the Skull Island, the Whitebone clan's territory. If he had harmful intentions, Shi Yang couldn't hide. He'd better stay quiet and see what this little buddy wanted to do. Shi Yang made up his mind fast. The little skeleton understood him. Its eyes brightened when Shi Yang agreed to go with it. Then, it pointed at one of the bone dragons. The bone dragon roared and flew toward Shi Yang, crouching down under his feet. The little skeleton pointed at Shi Yang and then the bone dragon, asking him to get on it. All right, Shi Yang was cooperative. He stepped on the bone dragon. He was surprised to see that the bone dragon was smooth and felt warm like real jade. The little skeleton rode the other bone dragon. Swoosh, swoosh. The two bone dragons took Shi Yang and the skeleton away. They disappeared from my Ji's sight. They flew toward the massive, dark mouth of the skull and entered the huge crack instantly. Mai Ji glared at Shi Yang being taken away, but she couldn't do anything. Her resentment grew bigger. The scarlet light column was like a flaming thread unceasingly burning the ice peak that she had condensed. The starlight chains wound around the peak with terrifying energy, waiting to strike her hard when the ice all melted. Damn it! Whose kid is that? How could it be so abnormal like that? Mai Ji cursed. She felt bothersome thinking about the peerless experts of the Whitebone clan from the previous generation. Chapter 1403, Parents' Love. Chapter 1403, Parents' Love. The Whitebone clan's little skeleton brought Shi Yang deep into the Skull Island through a massive, mouth-like cave. It was a dark area where Shi Yang couldn't see anything. The bone dragons flapped their wings and moved through a dim-lit passage. After a while, Shi Yang finally saw a band of pale white light. It was like phosphorus flames from the bones. Shi Yang was placid as he sent his energy to his eyes to have better eyesight. The dim-lit area became clearer to him. This area was surrounded by stone walls. Those walls looked ash-gray and they were actually decayed bones. Many mysterious drawings were carved on the walls, including the moon, the sun, the stars, mountains, and even lakes. They looked lively as if they were real. After a while, the dragon bones stopped. The poorly illuminated cave suddenly brightened. Two bone dragons stopped by a massive stone room, which was the center of the Skull Island. This was a spaciously massive room that connected to 49 stone paths. Those 49 paths were like big ditches that connected to different areas on Skull Island. Piles of ash-gray bones stood in the paths. Those bones didn't have any bit of energy remaining. When Shi Yang released his soul consciousness to sense, they turned into ashes. The stone room had many ditches like a network of channels that created a massive, unknown formation. Two coffins stood in the center of the formation. They were made of unknown materials. The coffins were opened and standing in the middle of a massive bone pond. This bone pond must have had some liquid, but it was all dried up now. The little skeleton of the Whitebone clan stopped by the two coffins. The eyes made of stars of the skeleton contained its deep sorrow. The atmosphere in this stone chamber was affected by the skeleton's mood. Sadness was hovering in the air. The little skeleton's head turned around to take in the two coffins. Shi Yang silently walked forward. He saw two members of the Whitebone clan, one male and one female, lie inside the coffins. Apparently, these two Whitebone clan experts were the parents of this child. They lay quietly. There was no aura or life energy fluctuation. Their bones were brown-gray like bones that decayed for many years. They looked fragile as if they would break when someone touched them. Watching the coffins and the bone pond for a while, Shi Yang's eyes brightened. The two coffins had many long bones that reached the bone pond. They looked as if they were used to transport something into the pond. Shi Yang became more curious. He observed around and found that the paths and the ditches in the room all headed to the two coffins. They were likely used to pour some energy into the two coffins to refine and then pour into the bone pond to nurture something it bore. He looked at the little skeleton and understood it immediately. He had heard something about how the Whitebone clan had refined the children from Ivelines. It seemed like this kid's parents had used the mysterious power of the Whitebone clan to condense the energy from the bones on this skull island and used their bodies to refine the energy and pour into the bone pond. All this was to refine the bone body for this little skeleton. After the bone body was formed, something happened. His parents had to drain their own life energy to create him. They died in the end. During this process, something unexpected happened. Otherwise, this couple wouldn't have sacrificed themselves. While he was thinking, the little skeleton looked at him and then pointed at his parents inside the coffins. He spoke and gestured. He was trying to tell Shi Yang something. Although Shi Yang didn't understand anything, he could guess the skeleton's idea. He shook his head and sighed. Your parents don't have any bit of energy. They are dead. I'm afraid I can't do anything. The Whitebone clan little skeleton shook his head continuously. The scarlet and white lights shot out from his eyes and fell on the brown-gray male skeleton. Strangely, a feeble wisp of soul energy fluctuated for a fragment of time. The little skeleton's eyes brightened. He pointed at his father's body, crying and speaking to Shi Yang. Shi Yang was surprised. He concentrated on sensing. Then, he found a feeble soul energy fluctuation in the skull of the Whitebone clan male member. However, his life energy was drained, but there was a feeble wisp of soul energy, even though it wasn't enough to wake him up. Unless his bone body had vitality. The little skeleton pointed to Shi Yang and gestured hard. Then, he lay into the bone pond and released the vitality. His vitality moved through the white bones connected to the pond and the coffins, but it couldn't get through the coffin to pour into his parents' bodies. Shi Yang observed and he understood it. A strange feeling flooded him. The stone chamber inside this skull island was a peculiar formation of the Whitebone clan. A Whitebone clan couple wanted their kid to be powerful, so they had spent a lot of effort to build the formation, which took their energy through the coffins and poured vitality into the bone pond. The coffin and the bone pond were parts of this marvelous formation. However, it seemed like there was some big problem that happened during the process, which could harm the child. This couple had drained their life energy to save their child. Also, they had become so weak that they had just a wisp of a feeble soul energy. There was not even a little bit of vitality left in their bodies. This little bony buddy had found that Shi Yang cultivated life power Upanishad, so he hoped that Shi Yang could change this formation to pour energy into the pond and make it run back into the coffins. The little skeleton wanted to use his vitality to wake up his parents. How deep was a parent's love in this world? Shi Yang shook his head with emotions. This strange formation only receives vitality. We can't use the bone pond to guide energy back to the coffins. Your parents knew that you would do that in the future. They didn't let you do that. They hoped that you wouldn't pay with your life to revive them. The grief in the small skeleton became heavier. It opened its mouth and pointed to Shi Yang. He looked a little anxious and restless. Shi Yang gave him a forced smile. It's true that I'm cultivating life power Upanishad, but my realm isn't high enough to distort this marvelous formation. Alright, I can use the life power Upanishad to try. Let's see if my vitality can help your parents. The little skeleton nodded continuously, his eyes bright. He clasped his bony hands and bowed to Shi Yang, which made him look funny. I can only give it a try. You shouldn't have such big hopes. Shi Yang stepped forward and placed one hand on the heart core of the male skeleton. The heart core was the energy source of the Whitebone clan members. It functioned similarly to the god power ancient tree of the warriors. This man's heart core was rhombus shaped and simple as if it was made of natural jade. The heart core was cold under his hand. However, it had no energy fluctuation. It was like a still, stagnant pond. Shi Yang was cautiously urging his life power Upanishad. A drop of blood emerged on his fingertip, which had vigorous vitality that could revive the dry tree. Sizzle. His drop of blood fell on the heart core. The heart core absorbed that drop of blood instantly like a dry sponge. The heart core flashed and Shi Yang heard a heartbeat. Right after that, the coffin emitted an immense white light. The ivory light moved through the bones connected to the coffin to the bone pond. The dry pond suddenly had some viscous liquid. ***********. The The little skeleton cried painfully in the bottom of the bone pond. He looked so pitiful that he seemed to be going crazy. Shi Yang was bewildered. He hadn't expected that these parents from the White Bone clan only wanted to save their child before they died. The energy he had poured into the skeleton had followed the old path through the coffin to the bone pond. All they had done was for the little skeleton in the bone pond. They didn't even mind their lives. Shi Yang came from another world. His parents had gone early. Although he had inherited a big fortune from his parents, he had never experienced this sort of sacrificing parental love. Ever since he had come to this world, he had rarely been touched. And today, he was deeply touched when he knew the way the two skeletons in the coffins had used to protect their child. If we pour energy into the coffins, it will be poured into the bone pond afterward. To bring you to this world, they had sacrificed as much as they could. Shi Yang took a deep breath and then said, "We can't use this method. How about moving them out of the coffins and then I will try again? What do you think?" The little skeleton balled his body in a corner of the bone pond. It was crying silently in pain and hopelessness. It was almost desperate. Hearing Shi Yang's suggestion, it pulled itself together, nodded to Shi Yang, and jumped out of the pond. They were about to move his father's body out of the coffin. Right when it was about to take action, the Skull Island shook hard. A furious energy fluctuation came from the area above Shi Yang's head. The little skeleton was extremely enraged. Hesitated for a while, it decided to go out and see. However, it was worried about Shi Yang, so it ordered the bone dragon to protect Shi Yang. Shi Yang was surprised. He didn't know that Mai Ji of the Phantom Clan could be so powerful to get rid of the confinement that quickly. Skull Island. A cold ice mountain peak was coiled by so many lights. A flaming chain was releasing scorching heat to melt the ice peak. The ice peak confined Mai Ji's graceful body. However, fear had filled her beautiful eyes on her charming, pale face. She looked afar. In the mist above her head, two silhouettes slowly landed. They were two old, dry men with thick corpse chi. They all wore strange green robes with a drawing of a mysterious black hole on the left chest. They were all lanky with deep green, spooky eyes and bluish-green skin. Their arms were strangely long and they could reach their calves. However, their hands had only 3 fingers, which were as sharp as swords. The deep green eyes looked at Mai Ji like venomous eyes that gazed at a delicious prey. Mai Ji's visage changed dramatically. At first glance, she knew the two old men's identities. Shivers sent down her spine. Rumble. Rumble. Right after they had landed, the Skull Island was shaken grumblingly. This powerful tremor was what Shi Yang and the little skeleton had found. Mai Ji didn't create this commotion. A member of the Phantom Clan snorted one of the old men. He naturally strolled toward Mai Ji and mumbled to himself, "Oh, the unfathered kid has confined her. I am Mai Ji from the Phantom Clan. Friends from Devouring Clan, I wonder why you are visiting this island. If you want to attack the White Bone Clan members on this island, we can negotiate." Mai Ji giggled. She honestly and passionately looked at the 2 members of the Devouring Clan, proactively showing her cooperative intention. Unfortunately, the other 2 didn't have the same idea. They suddenly attacked her. As soon as the old man approached her, he opened his mouth to spurt a python made of corpse chi. The python began to dig into the ice mountain from the foot. The ice cracked and broke as the python wanted to climb up and bite Mai Ji. Chapter 1404, The Real Origin of the Soul Inside the Ring. Chapter 1404, The Real Origin of the Soul Inside the Ring. The python made of corpse chi continuously nibbled the ice and cracked it from the foot. The white python then turned into a bright mist under the ice mountain and then seeped into the mountain. Shortly after, an arm-sized rope coiled around Mai Ji. Boom, boom, boom. The ice peak exploded. Countless ice rocks shattered. The meteor-like beams of light and the flaming chain turned into a flow of light that disappeared into the ground of the Skull Island. Mai Ji suddenly understood something. The little skeleton of the White Bone Clan didn't want to kill or harm her. The starlight beams and the flaming chain hovering around just wanted to bind her and prevent her from running away. After the ice peak exploded, those lights and flames disappeared into the ground. It was enough to prove that the little skeleton didn't want to kill her. Otherwise, those meteor-like lights and flames could have seized the chance to destroy her when the python broke the ice. She would have been hurt badly or even killed. Ah! The old man from the devouring clan was surprised when he looking at the lights and flames disappearing into the ground. He frowned and then sneered, "That illegitimate child is kind enough to not attack her brutally. It spared her life. Haha, it's good then. He gave me a good advantage this time." His shiny bluish face was like snakeskin. It gave a cold and evil impression. At this moment, he grinned fiendishly and lustily. His deep green eyes lingered on my G's sexy body. He gulped and laughed eccentrically. "The women of the Phantom clan are all heavenly treasures. Haha, she's at the same realm as 'em. It's true that you can't stop your fortune when it comes to you. I'm going to make you a corpse slave and you will serve me every day. It's the best thing in the world." "Excellent." The white python wound around my G's delicate waist, her round rear end, and her ample breasts. It squeezed her white, jade-like skin, leaving the red marks on it. This cruel, beautiful sadism could ignite any man's desire and burn their mind instantly. The two old men of the devouring clan had naked lust fill their eyes. The old man standing further away even had a boner in his pants. His blood chi was running chaotically. He couldn't help but let out a low shout. "Bostos! Give this woman to me. I want her for 10 years. After 10 years, I will return her to you. Just say that she's one of the payment you have to give to me this time." The green lines like venomous snakes were moving inside his pupils. The other old man who was called Bostos twitched. His eyes greedily scanned my G's body several times. He took a deep breath to pull himself together. "Nazorio, I can let you keep this woman for 10 years, but you have agreed with me that you have to do your best to deal with that rascal from the Whitebone clan." "No problem." Nazorio licked his lip. The two old men from the devouring clan came here for the little skeleton. They had accidentally met my G here. Women of the Phantom clan were famous treasures in this vast cosmos. Every man would treasure them as their most precious asset. Unfortunately, the Phantom clan was one of the 7 great clans. Each of the female warriors of this clan was powerful and noble. Not many people could capture the Phantom clan women to enjoy the endless pleasure that they could bring. My G was at the peak of immortal realm. With her power, when she was at her peak condition, she wouldn't fall into a disadvantageous situation when facing these two old men from the devouring clan. It was too bad for her that her condition was really bad at this moment. Thus, the corpse chi python could capture her and send the corpse chi into her body to affect her. The corpse chi slowly affected her flesh and blood. She could feel her flexible body go numb and stiff. Whenever she tried to urge her energy and power Upanishad, the python squeezed her tighter as if it wanted to halve her right at her waist. She gritted her teeth and felt so resentful upon listening to the two old men talk. As she opened her mouth to talk, the corpse chi flooded her mouth. Thus, she decided to shut up. My G felt utterly insulted. She loathed the two old men, Yang, and the little skeleton too. She thought that if the other two didn't trick her, with her full power, she wouldn't be afraid of these two sinister, vulgar old men. Thinking about the mantis-green eyes of the two old men and their sharp fingers, which would possibly slide on her beautiful, soft body in the future, she got goosebumps. Her heart was filled with cold despair. She had made up her mind. If she couldn't find a chance to overturn this, she was going to use her power Upanishad to freeze her body and then self-detonate before the corpse chi invaded her sea of consciousness fully. Even if she had to die, she was never going to let herself fall to these two devouring clan's old men. She'd rather die than live like that. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Flapping sounds arose. The two snow-white bone dragons had come back and appeared in my G's sight. My G's eyes brightened. She looked at the little skeleton and Yang riding the bone dragons with the hope for a new change to this situation. "Child born out of wedlock. You can't believe I'm here for you, right? You hurt me last time. I have to spend a lot of time to recover. Today, I'm not alone. I'm here with the power of 2 experts at the peak of immortal realm. Let's see how you can protect your parents' bodies. Mwahaha, I've talked to Nazorio. We will each keep one of your parents. After we refine them into corpse slaves, they will be powerful assistants for us to swagger. The devouring clan member called Bostos grinned fiendishly and eccentrically. His eyes raked through the skeleton riding the bone dragon. He didn't even give Shi Yang a look. The aura on Shi Yang's body was ordinary to him. While Shi Yang hadn't emerged yet, he had already confirmed his realm and cultivation base. A first sky of immortal realm warrior in his eyes couldn't support the little skeleton. Is that him? Nazorio subsided his tide-like desire to my G. He got himself together quickly. What did you find in our precursor's vestiges? Our precursor had been here a long time ago. At that time, the parents of this illegitimate kid were refining him. Our precursor wanted to seize the chance to kill its parents and make them corpse slaves. Unexpectedly, even at the final phase of their process, they were still very powerful. They attacked our precursor and wounded him badly. He had to run away. Not long after he left this place, he knew that he couldn't survive the damages. He had used his last drops of energy to create his cave mansion vestige so someone from our clan could find it later. When Bostos talked about their precursor, he looked respectful as if he was slowly blowing the dust on a piece of their history. Inside the vestige, he told us about this secret. He even showed the location of this island. He said that the parents of this kid couldn't survive for a long time. He asked us to come and refine them into corpse slaves. It's to take revenge for him. He coldly looked at the little skeleton. 30 years ago, I followed the direction and came here. However, this bastard has already formed. I couldn't defeat it, so I had to run. I've spent 30 years recovering. That's why I came to you and asked you to join me on this affair. You can have one of its parents' bodies to refine your corpse slave. Pausing for a while, Bostos shouted, the bone body of the White Bone Clan territory ancestor realm expert. They're the best for creating corpse slaves. Once we can refine them, the voice of our branch in the clan will be more powerful. The bone body of the territory ancestor realm expert. Nazorio's dark green eyes moved fast. He couldn't hide his greed. He looked at my G who was under the python's attack and then at the little skeleton. He grinned and nodded to the other. I want that phantom woman and one bone body. You can keep the other body and this little skeleton. Deal. Bostos agreed. They exchanged looks and laughed loudly as they felt so content. Shi Yang wore a calm face while sitting on the bone dragon, even though a high wave was rising in his heart. They were two devouring clan members. The devouring clan was the race that Devour, the absolute beginning creature, had used his blood and flesh to create. It was one of the 7 great clans in this vast cosmos and also the most mysterious and evil. Devour used to impart the devouring power Upanishad and the 8 great evil powers for this clan. However, throughout the perpetual time of inheritance, the devouring power Upanishad was lost. Even the 8 great evil powers were scattered and incomplete. Even so, in the sea domain of nihility and the other territories in this immense universe, no one dared to look down on the devouring clan. It was still one of the strongest clans. Devour was the archenemy of Desolate. Their combat had carried out for billions of years and it hadn't ended yet. Desolate had created Bloodthirsty. When it was about to impart the power Upanishad to Bloodthirsty, Devour attacked it. Devour had successfully given Bloodthirsty the devouring power Upanishad and the 8 great powers. It made Bloodthirsty turn around to destroy Desolate's incipient extent and inevitably kill Desolate too. In the end, Bloodthirsty had used the supernatural and peerless talents to understand the power and backfire Devour. After that battle, Devour was shut down ever since. Bloodthirsty had built up Bloodthirsty force and with his extraordinary power, he had defeated Devour with devouring power Upanishad and the 8 great evil powers. After Devour had left to fight against Desolate, the devouring clan had gradually lost its inheritance. Quite the contrary, in Desolate territory, Devour's inheritance, the Bloodthirsty force, had the complete inheritances of the power. It was a joke that the creator played on Devour. Today, seeing the 2 members of the devouring clan, Shi Yang closed his eyes to sense for a while. He was shaken hard. The secret that had troubled him for a long time was solved when he saw the devouring clan members. After Bloodthirsty was gone, the blood vein ring was divided into 3 parts. Laro Luo, Xian Shan, and Xian He used them to create the inheritance on the ancient continents. Xian He failed. Laro Luo brought Shi Yang here. And Xian Shan appeared to have failed, but he actually brought a soul from another universe. That soul discreetly supported Harson. Harson also failed and Shi Yang had killed him. That soul had swallowed the ring spirit and attempted to seize Shi Yang's body. And then, when Bloodthirsty's remains were gradually exposed, that soul had another evil thought. It enticed Shi Yang to gather Bloodthirsty's remains so it could use his remains to resurrect itself. Shi Yang didn't know where that soul had come from. And today, as he saw the members of the devouring clan, he realized the answer. Even though that soul had tried to hide it, its aura and vague appearance were very similar to the 2 members of the devouring clan in front of him. That soul came from the devouring clan in the sea domain of nihility. He understood the situation of the bloodthirsty force and he knew the 8 great evil powers. That was why he could activate the mysterious formation on the island inside the dark abyss. Possibly, that soul was the backup plan that Devour, the absolute beginning creature, had preserved. Devour had used its power to bring a soul it had chosen from the race it had created. It wanted to make that soul the new master of bloodthirsty force, which was going to change the structure of desolate territory and start a new round of battles with desolate. Chapter 1405, Mysterious Yin Corpse Worm. Chapter 1405, Mysterious Yin Corpse Worm. Sizzle. Sizzle. The white python made of the corpse chi tied Mai Ji as if it was an arm-sized rope. Mai Ji's body was hung in midair on the skull dragon. Countless corpse chi wisps from the python were intruding her body while it kept hissing. The devouring clan had 8 branches, which cultivated the 8 great devil powers. Nazorio and Bostos belonged to the corpse chi branch. This division was similar to the 8 forces of the bloodthirsty force. The devouring clan members who cultivated corpse chi had mastered refining corpse slaves. They had some intimidating corpse slaves that were even stronger than their masters. The devouring clan had many different styles in refining the corpse slaves. However, making the corpse chi seep into the body until it brimmed and diffused was the fundamental method of refining corpses. Bostos's corpse chi python was actually his strange tool to refine corpses. This secret treasure could make the corpse toxin intrude the victim's body slowly and transform the blood, flesh, and vitality of any creature. It would make the body filled with corpse chi, which facilitated the next step to create a corpse slave. When the body was invaded, the corpse chi winded around the soul and body of the victim. The victim then became stiff and lost consciousness. Feeling so many wisps of corpse toxins moving inside her body, Mai Ji slowly saw illusions and her thinking got sluggish. Her eyes gradually lost light and became dulled and blank. Her white, glowing skin was now sickly pale. She knew that the python created by some strange tool was using the corpse toxin to erode her bit by bit. She gathered her spirit, which she was slowly losing, and bit the corners of her mouth. 2 trickles of blood oozed and rolled to her neck. They looked like terrifying, eye-catching worms. Bam! A wave of cool energy came out of her round breasts, her chest shaking. A snow-white lotus with blood veins on the petals grew on her chest, covering her entire charming body. Mai Ji's eyes regained light. She looked at the 2 members of the devouring clan in the distance and pointed at the python's head that was facing the lotus on her chest. An icy saber emerged. The snake's head exploded. The corpse chi flows became smaller wisps. However, it was just for a moment. The corpse chi then congregated and condensed, covering Mai Ji one more time. Not far from her, Bostos was watching with a teasing face. With your realm and cultivation base, I can't actually tie you down. Anyway, your wounds are really bad and you have just 1/3 of your god power left. How can you resist my corpse toxin corrosion? Indeed, as soon as his voice vanished, the python Mai Ji had just beheaded reappeared and coiled Mai Ji and her snow lotus all together. To create the snow lotus, Mai Ji had to pay with serious damage to her body. After this failure, she couldn't attack sufficiently again. Before she lost her ability to speak, Her bright eyes gazed at the little skeleton and she cried weakly, "I could only distract him for a while. It's what I can do. I hope you can kill these two. I hope that you could endure it." She understood clearly that with her current condition, she couldn't stand Bostos or Nazorio. She could only lay her hope on the little skeleton. She hoped that it could be resilient. The only thing she could do now was to not yield to them. She would use her little amount of remaining energy to trouble Bostos and make him distracted by attacking him. She didn't even look at Shi Yang. At this moment, her life was her top priority. The idea of refining Shi Yang to help her reach the territory ancestor realm was now out of reach. Moreover, she didn't have enough energy to waste on a useless junior. In this battle, Shi Yang was predestined as a minor, unimportant character. She thought so too. The little skeleton had the same thought. It turned to Shi Yang, its crystal arms swinging at the bone dragons and asking them to take Shi Yang further from this area to avoid the devouring clan expert's ambush. Swoosh! The bone dragon immediately flew away and carried Shi Yang further away from this battle. The bone dragon dropped Shi Yang and then soared up into the sky. It flew around the little skeleton. Rattle! Rattle! Strange noises suddenly arose from Bostos's sleeves of the green robes. So many shiny white worms flooded out of his sleeves. Those worms had many legs like centipedes. However, each of their legs was as sharp as a sword. Although the worms were just as big as a thumb, there were hundreds of thousands of them. After they had flown out of his sleeves, they crept rapidly toward the little skeleton. Shi Yang squinted to watch, his face changed. The mysterious yin corpse worms. As the new master of Bloodthirsty, although he didn't know all of the 8 great, evil powers, he did know the secrets of these powers. The mysterious yin corpse worms were a kind of strange insect that are force-cultivating corpse chi like Frederick bred. They had to nibble the corpses of the experts for at least 100 years to be able to transform to mysterious yin corpse worms. This kind of corpse worm was cold yin with saber-like legs that could tear an expert's body easily. They would enter the bodies to nibble from the inside. Starting from the stomach and the internal organs, they would eat an expert from the inside. No saber or sword could cut the mysterious yin corpse worm. Water and fire were also useless. Those worms had strange energy waves that could affect the sea of consciousness. The corpse worms from Bostos' sleeves cried sharply. While they were marching toward the little skeleton, Shi Yang also felt his soul fall in pain. It felt like he got stabbed with pointy spikes. He knew that those mysterious yin corpse worms were really tough. It was really hard to refine one worm. They had to eat at least hundreds of corpses and the expert had to refine them for hundreds of years. Each mysterious yin corpse worm was just as big as a thumb, but Shi Yang knew that they ate a lot. A worm could finish an entire warrior in 2 hours. Facing a wave of so many mysterious yin corpse worms, let alone ordinary creatures, even a giant beast of heavenly monster tribe couldn't endure them for long. The worms could even finish their bones. However, while facing the members of the Whitebone clan, the mysterious yin corpse worms couldn't do much. The corpse toxins and flesh-eating worms were not effective against the little skeleton. The little skeleton stood in front of the bone dragons and watched the worms swarm. It didn't want to dodge at all. The toxin from the mysterious yin corpse worms and the worms couldn't affect it at all. The skeleton lifted his head to look at Bostos as if he was wondering why Bostos had done such useless attacks, which made him bewildered. "Ha ha," Bostos sneered. The palms of his hands suddenly glowed. The fingerprint light flew out from his hands and created something like magical curtains above the corpse worms. The two formations seemed to have an evil power that stimulated the mysterious yin corpse worms and made them insanely brutal. The worms hissed and risked their lives, swarming forward. The corpse worms covered the little skeleton instantly. The insect's crying and shrieking was so sharp that it could tear people's eardrums. Shi Yang's face was cold as he had to use the space power Upanishad to confine his area to protect himself from the harmful sound waves. When the terrifying shrieking arose, blood ran out of my Ji's eyes, nostrils, and ears. Her charming face became paler. My corpse worms can only disturb its soul. They can't eat this skeleton. This bastard's bones are really tough. My corpse worms can't chew it. I need your power to kill it. After the little skeleton was covered in the pile of worms, Bustos took a deep breath and then turned to Nazorio. Of course, I'm here to give you a hand. Nazorio nodded. He coughed and then strolled toward the little skeleton. Swoosh, swoosh. The two bone dragons were enraged. They stormed over, biting and tearing to protect the little skeleton. Nazorio looked calm as he touched his glabella. His incipient extent emerged from the crown of his head. Piles of bones like mountains appeared in an immense world. The vast, seething sea in the middle of that world contained something viscous like liquid that oozed out from the corpses. Thousands of dismembered bodies from different clans floated and bobbed together with cut limbs, eyeballs, fingers, or even skulls in that sea. An eccentric fist-sized eyeball floated and drifted from the sea of corpses. From the corpse sea, countless beams of corpse chi condensed and turned into wisps of white air that poured into that eyeball. Nazorio grabbed it and brought it out of his incipient extent. Corpses crack. Holding the strange eyeball facing the two dragons, Nazorio shouted in the ancient language of the devouring clan. Crack, crack, crack. The two bone dragons suddenly had so many thick, fine cracks as if they were gashed by invisible blades. Boom. One of the bone dragons exploded, its bones shattering. Nazorio frowned and avoided the pieces of bones from that bone dragon. He walked toward the small skeleton. The mysterious yin corpse worms in his way seemed to sense his intimidating aura. They scattered and gave him a narrow path that led to the little skeleton. Bustos hovered in the air and focused on using his power Upanishad. The two fingerprints like massive hands slowly snatched down from the sky and made the mysterious yin corpse worms hiss and shriek harder. The soul-piercing shrieks from the worms had pressured the little skeleton, which created a chance for Bustos to crack the skeleton. Shiyang watched silently. He didn't take rash actions. He observed the moves of the two members of the devouring clan and their power Upanishads. When the others were about to kill the little skeleton, Shiyang changed his thoughts and a strange energy fluctuated that spreaded from him. He suddenly vanished like a wisp of smoke. When he reappeared, he was behind Mai Ji's sexy body. Mai Ji faced Bustos and Nazorio. These two had concentrated on killing the little skeleton and they didn't even bat an eye at him. They didn't notice that when he disappeared and reappeared, Mai Ji was standing and shielding in front of him. Also, the other two didn't even care about Mai Ji, so they didn't see Shiyang hiding behind her. Bustos and Nazorio didn't look at him but Mai Ji shivered as she could sense his commotion. She was anxious, her eyes desperate and bitter. It was calmer when this rascal could have a chance to ambush her. It was good then. At least, it was better than falling into the two old men's hands. Mai Ji sighed inwardly. Chapter 1406, Detoxify. Chapter 1406, Detoxify. Mai Ji sighed. It was the first time she regretted that she had provoked Shiyang. She knew all of her troubles were caused by her greed. If she hadn't provoked Shiyang, she wouldn't have offended Forefather Dragon Lizard and Tu Shiqi from the mysterious Sky Clan. She wouldn't have needed to join hands with Sing to end up getting wounded seriously when Shiyang's world-within-world exploded. It wouldn't have ignited her wrath and tempted her to chase after him until she was exhausted. And now, they were on this Whitebone clan's Skull Island. She reaped what she sowed. Shiyang had pushed her to a tragic death. Mai Ji was so regretful that she wanted to die. Shortly after, a pair of rough, big hands were placed on her exposed back. The hands were warm and they didn't send any fatal energy to attack her when they were placed on her beautiful back. Mai Ji was touched. She woke up immediately and bit her lips. She pressed her voice to the lowest, audible level. Little thief. Your lust is too big. You're about to die, but you still have the mood to harass me. She thought that Shiyang wanted to seize the chance to sexually harass her. Harass you? Shiyang's voice was cold and stiff behind her. I don't have free time to do that. I'll only ask you one question. If I save you this time, what should you do about the grudge between us? Save me. Mai Ji thought that she had heard a good joke before she died. With only you. Do you think you've reached the territory ancestor realm and have the strength to help me detoxify the corpse toxin in my body and get rid of this python? You're too confident. My G thought that unless he had reached the territory ancestor realm, it was just a dream to save her from this situation. The evil power Upanishads of the devouring clan was always peculiar. The corpse chi was even worse. It was almost impossible to heal a victim of the corpse toxin in a short time. Shi Yang was just a small warrior at first sky of immortal realm. Also, she had witnessed his recent breakthrough. What did he have to save her from the corpse toxin? It was the biggest joke ever. We don't have much time. I'm asking you again. If I can save her, what will you do? Think and answer. If I'm not satisfied with your answer, you'll lose your only hope. Shi Yang sounded ruthless and cold. However, his words echoed strongly. My G didn't know whether she should cry or smile. She just thought that the kid behind her didn't know how high the sky was. If you help me break this blockage, I'm willing to humble and harass myself by serving you dedicatedly. The women of our clan are the best dreams of all men. I'm sure I can give you endless delight. I'm never interested in the sort of woman who would take any man as their husband, Shi Yang sneered. Anyway, your attitude pleases me. Who said I'll take anyone to be my husband? My G's alluring face seemed frosty. She was so angry that she shivered and spoke coldly. Although we were born with the gift of the soul enchanting technique, we keep ourselves clean. If I can move, I will cut your tongue first. Well, you can still make wind of this situation. We can't talk to women, indeed, Shi Yang sneered again. Censored part. In the next moment, my G was tense when rough hands slid from her back to her sensitive waist. And they continued sliding further downward. You! What are you doing? She hissed through her gritted teeth. What are you afraid of? Shi Yang's mocking voice arose behind her. You've been King chasing me for a long time. I know you're hungry for me. And now, you said that you're a virgin. I need to check to see whether it's true. If it's true, I will give you face by satisfying this hungry, resentful woman. You dare. My G's bright eyes became anxious and restless. She cultivated ice power Upanishad. The soul enchanting technique was just a special innate ability that the Phantom clan women had. From her power Upanishad, one could tell that she wasn't a loose person. To the Phantom clan women, the enchanting technique was just a trick, and it was a deadly trick, anyway. They didn't use it to win someone's heart. If they wanted to win someone's heart, they would only do that to the loyal and dedicated male guests or their life partners the clan had matched for them. The Phantom clan women with high realms would never sacrifice their bodies. Their clan didn't have male members. They were the trump cards in their clan. They had to be the beautiful source of troubles to make this vast sea of stars chaotic. However, they all kept their purity. My G was this sort of woman. Shi Yang's big hands wandered on her back and butt cheeks. Under the soft, silky dress, they were moving toward the joint between her thighs. She was extremely frightened and her flame of wrath rised torrentially. She couldn't turn her head around to see Shi Yang. At this moment, his face looked ultimately grave. He didn't even have any vulgar intention as sweat beaded on his forehead. His hand slowly reached and placed on my G's most mysterious area. When my G was shivering in anger and was about to use her last beam of energy to resist, a small black hole appeared on Shi Yang's hand. That black hole revolved rapidly and a strong but strange suction force began to work. My G's fragrant grass became warm and the suction force was like a rapid electric current that shot through her entire body. The corpse toxin in her body was attracted and it moved downward. She suddenly had an urge to urinate and she couldn't hold it. Immediately, her stream of urine was discharged. The corpse toxin in her body was rolled into the urine and discharged from her body in such a humiliating way that she couldn't stand it. They flowed out of her mysterious, sensitive place and poured on Shi Yang's hand. Her water ran through the gaps between Shi Yang's fingers while the black hole in his palm swallowed all the corpse toxin. The python coiling my G's sexy body became like a withered flower. It dried strangely. It seemed like the python's nutrient and life energy was drawn. From the size of an arm, it shrunk until it was as big as a finger. Even then, it continued shriveling. Mai Ji's numb body started to get better as she was discharging urine uncontrollably. Seeing the python get smaller, Mai Ji felt both humiliated and surprised. She didn't know how and why Shi Yang had drawn the toxin out of her body. Also, he had applied such a deviant way to take them out of her body. Even if she squeezed her brain, she could never think that Shi Yang was using the Devouring Power Upanishad, the lost power Upanishad of the Devouring clan, on his hand, which was placed on her sensitive part of the body. The Devouring clan had the Devouring Power Upanishad that topped the others. It had subdued all the other 8 great, evil power Upanishads. The Devouring Power Upanishad could swallow all the energy generated by the other 8 power Upanishads. It could devour corpse toxin, erosive toxins, death energy, and even dark energy. It was also the reason why after Shi Yang swallowed energy, he could send extra energy to warriors cultivating one of the 8 power Upanishads through the mark on their foreheads. Sizzle. Sizzle. The python suddenly disappeared. A rope made of white hair on corpses fell on the ground. Without energy, this secret treasure had fallen off Mai Ji's body. Mai Ji regained her mobility. Her soft body was quivering. Her silky dress was soaked wet and her lower body felt damp and sticky. She stooped and found a hand placed on the joint of her thighs. Humiliation and unspoken indignity appeared on her face. She loathed that she couldn't kill herself at this spot. She felt sorry for her reputation. She had been receiving nice names and glories, arrogantly enjoying so many top-qualified privileges. However, all burned down because of this humiliating moment. She had urinary incontinence. This attack wasn't less than a big damage to her body. Her heart was filled with resentment and sour, bitter feelings. However, she had no way to vent it. It seems like you've recovered. Before her volcano had erupted, Shi Yang had retracted his hands and stepped away from her. When she turned around to see, she found Shi Yang shaking his left hand off the water on it. A streak of glittering fluid seemed to ridicule her ugly, embarrassing performance. It drove her crazy. Shi Yang shook off the urine on his hand right in front of Mai Ji. He rubbed his hand with the cloth on his side. Right after that, he wore a calm face as if nothing had happened. He said indifferently, "If the 2 monsters of the Devouring clan aren't dead, we're all doomed. Although your god power isn't abundant now, you're at the peak of immortal realm. Yeah, you don't need me to teach you how and what to do, right?" Mai Ji got it immediately. Shi Yang unchained her to make her risk her life with the 2 old experts of the Devouring clan. He wanted to use her last drop of power to exchange for his life. Mai Ji was so resentful that she even felt her teeth itch. At this moment, she pushed aside the attempt to figure out how Shi Yang had sucked all the corpse toxin out of her body. What was left in her was only her indignation. "I have only a part of my god power left. Do you want me to explode my soul altar to help you get rid of this?" Shi Yang shrugged. "You won't let me go there to die. Even if I go there, I have no way to overturn the situation. You can do it, more or less." He did want Mai Ji to die together with the 2 Devouring clan experts. He had observed and he knew Mai Ji had a deep grudge against the others because they wanted to turn her into a corpse slave. He had recognized when she even wanted to kill herself in her despair. "You want to die anyway. If you can drag one Devouring clan monster with you to cushion your back, will it not be very convenient?" To the woman who wanted to kill him and refine his soul to help her reach the territory ancestor realm, Shi Yang didn't have a bit of compassion. All that he had done was just to turn this situation around. Boom. Boom. At this moment, another bone dragon shattered. Of the 2 old monsters of the Devouring clan, one was using a massive fingerprint to increase the soul pressure and the other was holding a white eyeball to gather the energy to strike the little skeleton. All of a sudden, Bostos shivered. He turned around to look at the other side. He had finally found something wrong. Shi Yang pointed at the rope made of white hair by Mai Ji's foot. "When that thing receives the corpse chi, it will become that powerful, intimidating python." "Damn. Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Mai Ji changed her visage. She gathered her god power. Sharp icicles appeared and stabbed the white rope. The rope cracked and made sounds that indicated it cracked, but it didn't disconnect or break. However, Bostos was shaken hard and his face was pale. "It's his life treasure," Shiyang shouted. He didn't need to think and he slashed his bloody sword. A 100-meter bloodlight grumblingly hacked on the white rope. This rope was made of white hair of the members from 100 races. From one full-force attack of the bloody sword, it was halved. P2E. Bostos couldn't help but spurt blood. His spirit, chi, and soul became fatigued immediately. He shouted as if his madness had finally burst out. Roaring and crying, he crazily dashed toward the others. Temporarily, he left the little skeleton behind. Chapter 1407, Join Hands. Chapter 1407, Join Hands. Underscore the life treasures of the warriors connected to the host soul, sea of consciousness and even to the god power ancient tree. Typically, a warrior refined only one life treasure, which they tried to maximize. The life treasure could perform a lot of magical functions. As the warrior and his life treasure was connected through the soul, the power sent to the treasure wouldn't be disrupted and he could even send his soul consciousness together with the energy. However, when the life treasure was damaged badly, the owner received the same damage. In some worse cases, when the life treasure shattered, the owner's body exploded altogether. In the worst case, the owner's soul was torn to pieces. Bostos's white rope was made of the white hair of corpses from 100 different races. He had refined it with many rare and precious materials for several hundred years. That white rope was called corpse reins and it was the fundamental tool he had to refine the corpse. This corpse reins helped him refine and tame many corpses. This white rope was a terrifying whip to his corpse slaves. Outside the Skull Island, layers of mist hovered. That white mist could defend the corpse slaves. The parents of the little skeleton had created the mist to protect the area. Thus, Bostos and Nazorio couldn't bring the corpse slaves with them this time. Otherwise, with 2 more corpse slaves, they would have finished this battle perfectly. One of the magical functions of this corpse reins was that it could absorb vitality to turn a vigorous warrior into a stiff corpse. It facilitated the corpse refining process a lot. The python created by the corpse reins had coiled my Ji for a while. If it had held her for longer, she would have lost her consciousness. She would have become a corpse without the ability to reason. After that, Bostos could have activated her brain to make her his standard corpse slave. He didn't think and just dashed forward at his max speed. A white light tore the sky. Bostos waved his hands on the way and the feeling of connected flesh came to him. 2 pieces of the corpse reins suddenly shivered and moved like a snake. Slowly, they reconnected and they looked almost intact. Shiyang was still far away so he couldn't stop him. He could only shout at Mai Ji, "Try your best to stop him." Mai Ji cursed Shiyang's ancestors and gritted her teeth to urge the little bit of energy she had. A broad ice sword slowly emerged from her palm. The body of the sword reflected her beautiful body. It looked like she was carving her soul seal onto it. The ice sword was formed. Mai Ji's face became even paler. Her jade-like arm rose and slashed on the corpse reins' old cut. Sizzle. The corpse reins was cut off again and it sent ice pieces everywhere. Wisps of ivory corpse chi emitted from the cut mouth. Bostos was on his way. He halted as if he had just barged into a mountain. He turned dark and sinister, roaring crazily. "That low woman. I'm sure I will make you wish that you were dead. I will definitely show you what happens if you offend me." Mai Ji was so cold. She knew that even if she had to detonate her soul altar, she would never let herself fall into Bostos' hands. Otherwise, she would have to endure an extreme torment which would make her want to die. She turned her head and her dark eyes gazed at Shiyang. "Are you satisfied now? Is it what you want?" Shiyang frowned and didn't say anything. He moved away and stayed far away from her and Bostos. Mai Ji looked at him in the eyes twice. In the end, she begrudgingly turned around. Another snow lotus bloomed on her ample breast with bleeding petals. It was beautiful and alluring like her exquisite glamour. The bleeding snow lotus had drained Mai Ji's life energy. At this rate of losing vitality, she must have used some kind of mysterious technique. As Shiyang guessed, she was about to risk her life with Bostos even if she had to pay with her own life. A wave of strange soul energy came from her brain. Her icy eyes were now filled with resolution. Bostos was coming with rage. He halted a few hundred steps away from my G as he was shaken hard. Bostos didn't dare to move even a step further. He didn't even dare to look at the treasure that was connected with his life. He didn't dare to take it back. It was because of the strange energy fluctuation from my G. It was like a volcano that could erupt at any minute. Once it was activated, it would release the last light and drag everybody close to the abyss to hell. As they were all at the peak of immortal realm, Bostos understood clearly that my G had only a bit of her god power left. However, when she decided to destroy her life, the energy from her death was going to be enough to shatter him altogether. In a specific range, he couldn't stand or avoid this. If you want to die, just do it. I don't have free time to waste on you. Bostos hovered in front of her, his face dark. All of a sudden, his brows twitched. He swayed and changed his direction, dashing towards Shiyang. When he had just turned around, he saw Shiyang slashing a bloodlight. He knew it was the thing that cut off his corpse reins. Thus, Shiyang was his enemy too. My G had prepared to shatter the jade together with the stones. Seeing Bostos change his target in fear, her eyes brightened with cold light when her evil plan worked. She sneered and looked at Shiyang from a distance, feeling really good. Hey old dog. If you want to kill me, you still need to work hard. If you don't believe me, come and try. Shiyang was like an illusion shifting through this skull island. His figure flashed and then disappeared. Then, he reappeared 10,000 miles away. Using the space power Upanishad, he was like a shadow that no one could capture. He didn't linger at any spot. The short rest on the skull island had allowed him to regenerate his energy a little bit. He wasn't a lamp without oil. If he wanted to run, he had enough energy to endure for a while. When my G wanted to kill him, she had struggled a lot. And now, it worked on Bostos too. Bostos was moving crazily, but he couldn't lock Shiyang down. Especially when Shiyang used dark energy, he could turn invisible. Bostos became hot-tempered and restless. My G was watching everything with a nonchalant face. She felt delighted when Bostos was roaring like a tiger but couldn't capture Shiyang. She had experienced this situation before, so she understood Bostos feeling well. Also, Bostos cultivated only the corpse chi. He didn't know how to use the soul power to find an expert with dark energy who was hiding. Thus, it was more difficult to deal with Shiyang. What made my G more surprised was that the thick corpse chi that Bostos had released massively didn't work on Shiyang. Shiyang was still moving agilely. He wasn't affected even a bit from Bostos' attack. My G subsided her delight of taking revenge. Her beautiful eyes became stern. She had a feeling that Shiyang cultivated some technique that could suppress Bostos. She had this feeling since Shiyang used a humiliating method that she would never forget to suck the corpse toxin from her body out. When she finally had time to focus her mind, this feeling became clearer. Something could subdue the power Upanishads of the devouring clan. My G couldn't react. She searched through her head, thinking about strange and rare power Upanishads, but she couldn't find anything that matched. It made her bewildered, indeed. She didn't relate it to the devouring power Upanishad because of 3 reasons. First, it was the top, supreme power Upanishad of the devouring clan. Second of all, this power was lost, even in the devouring clan. Third, Shiyang wasn't a member of the devouring clan. She just thought that Shiyang was mysterious and he seemed to have many secrets she couldn't understand. While she was observing, the corpse reins by her disappeared unknowingly. It seemed like Bostos had retrieved it. She didn't mind as she was busy taking in the pellets that the Phantom clan had refined to regenerate her energy, even if it wasn't that significant. She turned to look at the battle between the little skeleton and Nazorio. The mysterious yin corpse worms still covered the skeleton. However, they weren't as strong as when Bostos had used his power to support them. Their shrieking wasn't enough to trouble the skeleton's soul now. It troubled Nazorio to apply his power Upanishad on the little skeleton. At this moment, the little skeleton's eyes twinkled radiantly. A flaming light and an icy light shot out, which annoyed Nazorio a lot. Nazorio became a little helter-skelter. The eyeball in his eyes looked tired, as if it had consumed a lot of energy. Bustos, what the heck are you doing? Don't chase that kid. Kill this bastard first. Nazorio panted and couldn't help but yell. Bustos got himself together while persistently chasing after Shiyang. He knew that he didn't have a lot of time left. It would be better to join hands with the other to kill the skeleton instead of wasting time on pursuing Shiyang. After that, they would have plenty of time to defeat Shiyang and Meiji. Shiyang was moving strangely. Bustos couldn't catch him. Meiji was ready to explode herself altogether. Bustos didn't have any solution to deal with her quickly. Reluctantly, he had to fly back to Nazorio. Swoosh! A light shadow slid across. Shiyang reappeared not far from Meiji. He looked at Meiji. Once that little skeleton is killed, you have only one way to go, which is to die altogether. If you help it kill or shoo away the two monsters, we will all survive. If you want, you should go help it. I have only a bit of god power left. If I go there and join the battle, it will be no different than me killing myself. Meiji pulled a cold visage. You little cunning rascal, you're full of bad thoughts. You wanted me to hold one of the old monsters of the devouring clan. Good calculation. But why I should carry out your plan? I'm only at first sky of immortal realm. Once I show up, I'll be killed faster. Shiyang opened his arms and said begrudgingly, I know you're not weak. Meiji's eyes drilled into Shiyang. You shouldn't think about sacrificing me anymore. I will definitely not act as you wish. Shiyang kept silent. He knew his minor calculation couldn't be implemented. Pondering, he suggested, you and I join hands to deal with Bustos. Believe me, we have the power to fight him. I'm sure when he faces you, his power will be reduced massively. Finally, you want to contribute your strength now? Meiji snorted. Shiyang frowned, staying silent. Okay, I'll join you to battle against him. Nothing's worse than death, anyway. I'll accept all the prices. I want to make it clear that if you dare to hide and not risk your life, once I figure it out, I will drag you and Bustos to hell together. Meiji gritted her teeth, talking resentfully. Shiyang nodded his head with a forced smile. Chapter 1408, Counterattack. Chapter 1408, Counterattack. Crack, crack, crack. The wave of mysterious yin corpse worms had submerged the Whitebone clan child. His white, crystal bones were nibbled continuously. However, although the mysterious yin corpse worms were trying hard, they couldn't leave any scratch on that little skeleton. The bone body had been refined through hundreds of thousands of quenching times. His parents had put their effort into it. Its hardness was so abnormal that even the mysterious yin corpse worms couldn't break it. If its soul is dissolved, it can't supply energy to maintain the body's defense. We can break it then. Nazorio's fingers tightened around the white eyeball. As he swung his hand, his eyes shot an evil, white light, which felt so heavy when it shone on the little skeleton. It was like an entire mountain was placed on it. Bustos came back. He hovered in midair. At this moment, he didn't care about Shiyang or Meiji. The massive fingerprints from his palm flew out once again. The mysterious yin corpse worms became extremely frenzied. The mournful screeching echoed around the Skull Island. Anyone who heard it would feel their souls shake as if they got stabbed. The small bone body of the little skeleton shivered. The power of the flaming light and the icy light from his eyes weakened. His eyes showed his agony. At this moment, Shiyang and Meiji had landed a deal. Shiyang disappeared again. He had urged dark energy and stood invisibly by Meiji. Bustos and Nazorio focused only on the little skeleton. They didn't notice Shiyang's moves or Meiji's commotions. When Nazorio wanted to pour more energy to tear the bone body of the skeleton, the surrounding temperature suddenly reduced massively. He looked up skeptically. So many shining snowflakes were falling. Shortly after, a snowstorm struck the Skull Island and made it a snow-white, cold land. The cold, icy energy slapped on him and Bustos. As soon as the snowflakes fell, they melted and seeped into the two's bodies. Then, The two experts became stiff and chilled from the inside. Despicable slut. You really want to die, right? Bostos was outrageous. He saw my G around 1,000 steps away from him releasing icy cold energy. Countless sparkling snow lotuses were releasing cold energy and changing the weather of this entire area. Each of the snowflakes contained my G's cold energy. When the flakes fell and seeped into the body, they could freeze the body indiscernibly. So annoying. Nazorio was irritated. How did you confine her? How can she get rid of it? How could I know that? Bostos wasn't in a good mood. He said with a dark face, that slut can self-detonate at any minute. I don't want to be dragged with her to death. I gave her a chance. I didn't think she doesn't treasure her life like that. She dares to come to disturb us. You'd better defeat her now, yelled Nazorio. Bostos kept a cold face and pondered. He then said reluctantly, never mind. I'll sacrifice a little here. Okay, I will kill her and make her body my corpse slave. It's acceptable. Then, Bostos moved, his eyes darkly sinister. His incipient extent emerged from his forehead. It was a mountain made of so many corpses. It slowly descended above my G's head from the sky. This mountain was Bostos' power and it could kill my G. However, if my G wanted to play hard and pay by exploding her soul, she could break this corpse mountain. It was also a terrible loss to Bostos. That's why he didn't use it earlier. The corpse mountain was hundreds of meters high and created by pale corpses. It was scary enough to frighten anybody. Seeing the corpse mountain pressing down, my G's charming face was sour. She hissed through her gritted teeth. I hope your trick works. Don't harm me. Don't worry. I'm sure we can join hands to deal with Bostos. A voice came from nowhere, but it was full of confidence. My G lifted her head to watch the corpse mountain slowly falling. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. A long, narrow space slit emerged in the void above my G's head. Divine lights emerged from the space slit that led to an unknown world. Shiyang didn't even know where it led to. When he had first landed on this Skull Island, the space here was controlled by some invisible force. He couldn't find the space nodes to run away. It was like he was lost. It was also the reason why my G could find him, but he couldn't teleport away from this Skull Island. However, this time, when he urged his power Upanishad, it worked smoothly. The space nodes that had disappeared now resumed. If Shiyang wanted to leave now, he could do it deliberately. In the dark, Shiyang couldn't help but turn to the little skeleton. He saw his eyes sparkling once. He suddenly understood it. When he had fought with my G, that small skeleton must have done something to prevent him from running away using his space power Upanishad. The little skeleton wanted to keep him here to save his parents. This Skull Island should have some key to control energy barriers that were interlinked to the little skeleton. As he was in a dangerous situation, he didn't want to pull Shiyang into this pit, so it had lifted up some spatial barriers. Shiyang could finally use his space power Upanishad. My G's eyes brightened. The corpse mountain was still lowering. If it didn't change the direction, it would directly enter the space slit and disappear soon. Bostos was scared out of his wits. He wore an extremely grimaced face as he hurried to urge his power and create a corpse chi rope to tie the corpse mountain and pull it toward him. If it fell into the space slit, his soul would be damaged severely. My G laughed when she saw Bostos in a helter-skelter situation. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The icicles and ice sabers were revolving in the sky like a tornado of ice pieces. It floated up into the air from my G's head. When the energy congregated, a snowstorm with ice grumblingly rolled toward Bostos and Nazorio. The two old monsters of the Devouring clan wanted to focus on the skeleton first. Seeing the ice tornado go toward them, they were so angry that they could even vomit blood. Bostos was trying his best to stop the corpse mountain. He didn't have extra efforts to counter. Nazorio had to deal with the storm and tornado himself. Nazorio's corpse chi condensed and created a giant white-furred ape. The ape pounded its chest continuously, roaring and howling. It jumped into the ice tornado instantly to wreck it and tried to destroy the tornado before it could reach Bostos and Nazorio. Nazorio steadied his mind and prepared to strike again. Right at that moment, a blazing sun dashed over and stormed into the ice tornado. The white ape burned, smoking and screeching. Nazorio was shaken hard. Although the white ape wasn't his life treasure, it was created by his energy and power Upanishad. When the ape burned, it was also a heavy strike to his soul. He was wounded shortly after. Not only that, the little skeleton had seized the chance when Nazorio and Bostos were distracted to get rid of the mysterious yin corpse worms. So many stars twinkled on his body, which functioned like his acupuncture points. The starlight then shot up into the sky. Stars began to twinkle inside the mist layers above the Skull Island. It seemed like some formation had activated. The two bone dragons, which were mashed, had their bones connect again miraculously. They flew up one more time. In different corners of the Skull Island where many skeletons quietly piled, they slowly got up. These were hundreds of meters tall. They had only bones without eyes. However, they moved quickly and went to the battlefield. Shi Yang was hiding in a secret place. He saw so many massive skeletons carry the bone sabers and jump on the Skull Island grumblingly. Shortly, a skeleton, which seemed like it was the leader, stomped on dozens of mysterious yin corpse worms and smashed them. The corpse liquid splashed from the worms. That huge skeleton brought a white saber, storming toward Nazorio and slashing him. Swish! The saber light flashed as if it could tear the sky. So many light dots sparked from the white bone and flooded Nazorio. More and more giant skeletons gathered. A part of them stayed by the little skeletons and others advanced toward Bostos. Mai Ji was stunned. She relaxed while watching the giant skeletons try to powerfully and intimidatingly make Nazorio and Bostos helter-skelter. She looked at the little skeleton in astonishment. She knew that this Skull Island wasn't ordinary. Perhaps the entire Skull Island was a divine weapon that his parents had spent a lot of efforts to create for him to deal with the enemies. As he was temporarily held, he couldn't activate the power of the island. Thus, he was bullied. With Shi Yang and Mai Ji's help, the skeleton had gotten rid of it and activated the mysterious defense of the Skull Island. He had created many skeletons, which had changed the situation quickly. Those skeletons swung the bone sabers, attacking and chasing Bostos and Nazorio. They knew that the situation wasn't going well for them. They wanted to leave this place. However, when they flew up, they found that the gravity had increased almost 1,000 times. They were pulled back to the ground. They didn't cultivate space power Upanishad, so they couldn't use space energy to teleport like Shi Yang. Begrudgingly, they had to stay and fight against the huge skeletons on the Skull Island. Every time they tried their best to destroy a big skeleton, the little skeleton would do something that shook the entire Skull Island. Then, the smashed skeleton would resume its frame and continue to attack Nazorio and Bostos furiously like a dragon again. Those huge things were immortal. There was no way to kill them. Nazorio and the other were desperate when they figured this out. Shi Yang was hiding. He suddenly reappeared by Mai Ji, his face stunned. The little skeleton was riding a bone dragon and circling above the massive skeletons. He was swinging his arms and speaking the archaic language of the White Bone clan to command the skeletons, his warriors. Shi Yang watched them and was astounded. He was really surprised because of the little skeleton and this Skull Island. How could you absorb all the corpse toxins? All of a sudden, Mai Ji's eyes drilled into him. As far as I know, there aren't many power Upanishads that could absorb the corpse toxin. Also, I couldn't reason as to why you had to use that method to detoxify me. Mai Ji's voice pitched up, her face cold and malicious. Shi Yang turned to look at her and said deliberately, I only know that method to suck the toxin out. Only he knew the real reason. He used that method to detoxify her to take revenge. He wanted to humiliate her in a way she would never forget. If he wanted, he could have used a more proper method, which wouldn't irritate Mai Ji that much. However, he did it this way because Mai Ji was cruel and she had chased for a long time. She was greedy and terrible. She wanted to use him to reach the territory ancestor realm. She had enraged him. If she wasn't useful, he wouldn't have hesitated to find a chance and kill her to eliminate the danger afterward. Chapter 1409, Bully the Beauty. Chapter 1409, Bully the Beauty. My G's eyes were like cold sabers that cut and slashed Shiyang. She hated the fact that she couldn't stab and cut him to death. Then, the little skeleton sitting on the bone dragons was shouting and commanding his massive skeletons to attack Nazorio and Bostos. Strange noises of some commotions came from inside the Skull Island. Shiyang had recognized that this entire Skull Island was a divine weapon, and a formidable one, though. The Skull Island could seal the space to trap him, and it could increase the gravity to thousands of times, which kept Nazorio and Bostos from running away. At the same time, the little skeleton could even create huge skeletons and control them. This strange treasure was really unimaginable and marvelous. Bostos apparently didn't know that much. 30 years ago, the little skeleton had shown mercy by only wounding him. This time, Bostos invited one expert to help him. However, from the current situation, the result was going to be even worse than the previous time. Shiyang was happy and related. As soon as he could calm down, he had some interesting idea. Glancing at my G, his eyes then scanned her hot, inviting body. Bostos wasn't wrong. The phantom women were gifts from heaven. My G's long silk dress had many holes, which exposed her snow-like skin. Her white skin even glowed. Her breasts were so huge that they looked like they wanted to tear her dress to find freedom. Her slim waist emphasized her round, ample rear. Her cheeks were flawless under her twinkling eyes. This mature charming could arouse any man. Shiyang appraised her beauty sincerely. The glamour of this mature, charming woman had boiled any man's blood. Hey, you said that if I helped you get rid of the corpse toxin, you would sacrifice yourself and serve me. I remember it. After we're done with this, we should find some time to finish this, he laughed explicitly. My G's body went stiff, her face cold. You dare say that? Shiyang was surprised. Why can't I say it? Are you phantom women all liars? You don't keep your word. I just said that. Moreover, you humiliated me with your treating method. You should be happy I didn't say I would kill you. You still dare to talk about these conditions with me? My G was so angry that she wanted to vomit blood. I only know that you said if I could detoxify you, we wouldn't count the grudge between us and you would serve me for a while. Shiyang's voice was resolute. He snorted, don't think that you can deny it. At your conditions, do you think I will rape you if you don't do what you've promised? Rape? Rape me? In the next second, she screamed like a lunatic, her body shaking. Try it. If you aren't afraid of death, just try it. I don't think I can't handle you. Okay, I will try. Shiyang sneered inwardly. A thought popped up in his mind and triggered some secret arrangement. As soon as my G was ready to take action, she suddenly felt her private area get hot. It was like having a flame burning her lower body. She was scared out of her wits. With a pale face, she shivered. She pointed her jade-like finger at him. What did you do to my body? How could you be so despicable like that? Her lower body was so hot. The heat of the flame was controlled skillfully. However, if it increased, her lower body would burn. Thinking about a worse, insulted situation that could happen, she was panic-stricken. She could never think about someone so cruel and his terrible ambush to women like him even in her dreams. She suddenly recognized that Shiyang was evil, cruel, and not less than the two monsters from the Devouring clan. She was petrified and didn't dare to move. Her face wore a desperate expression as if she would rather die to end all of these. I had never provoked you on Dragon Lizard Continent. You were greedy. You wanted to refine my soul to help you reach the Territory Ancestor realm. I was running away. You didn't stop chasing me. To break through to Territory Ancestor realm, you've done a lot. I'm lucky that I have a tough life. If I hadn't been persistent and made a mistake on the way, what would have happened to me? My soul would have vanished and you would have destroyed it already. You and I don't have any resentment or grudge, but you could treat me like that. How couldn't I treat you the same way? Shiyang looked at her. He ridiculed with a cold face. Anyway, God doesn't favor you. I've undergone the Kalpa, but I'm still alive. And you're so weak now. Well, You gave me a chance. If I can't take it, I will not be able to get over my own challenge. My Ji stooped listening to his cold and harsh words. She felt so down. I'm in your hands now. Do what you want. She was subdued. A kid at first sky of immortal realm had ambushed her and humiliated her. And now, her lower body was burning. Her pride, confidence, and arrogance were torn apart. Her heart was gradually numb. Shi Yang arched his brows and slowly walked toward my Ji. He rose one hand and used his index finger to stroke her chin. Lifting her stooped head, he observed this peerless glamour. You're beautiful. You're a gift from heaven. Any man would get drunk because of you. I'm also a man. I can't avoid being vulgar. My Ji just let him do what he wanted to harass her. While listening to him, her dark eyes didn't have focus. I agree with you that I will serve you for a while. But you have to agree with me to erase that original flame seal. Her heart was now like ashes. Shi Yang's malicious tricks had made her panic. It was the first time she felt powerless and unable to do anything to Shi Yang. When she was done, the irritating feel disappeared. Shi Yang had retracted his finger on her chin. She was surprised, her eyes brightened. A red-orange flame danced on Shi Yang's fingertip. The flame had a special aura that she immediately recognized. It was the original flame seal that was placed in her lower body. She had a new hope now and said coldly, "When I recover, I will delight you then." Shi Yang looked at her deeply in the eyes. "After you recover, while we are having fun, I think your soul will leave you, eh?" My Ji frowned. "I don't care if you believe me or not. I will keep my words." She couldn't explain why Shi Yang suddenly lifted the seal that he had used to force her. Did he still have some other concealed trick? My Ji was frightened. She suspiciously circulated her power to check her body entirely. She gritted her teeth. Her neck blushed as she was carefully and detailedly checking her lower body. Shi Yang looked at her and smiled. In his mind, he wasn't actually happy though. He figured out her intention. There's no other trick. Don't be suspicious. You think I will believe you? My Ji's eyes were cold and dark. If I wanted to control you, why would I retrieve the original flame seal? Why would I do such a thing? My Ji was also bewildered. She contemplated and then gritted her teeth, lowering her voice. I can fulfill my promise, but you have to make sure that no one will hear about this. Otherwise, when I fully recover, I will not regret paying any price to kill you. She thought that Shi Yang wanted to seize the chance when she was wounded to force her for a fun night. She knew that if Shi Yang used his power, with her little remaining energy, she wouldn't be able to defend herself. Also, she thought that the little skeleton and Shi Yang had formed some agreement. On this Skull Island, with the little skeleton's support, she couldn't use her power to resist Shi Yang. She had to accept her fate. I don't need your body. Strangely, Shi Yang shook his head. You seem to have a high position in the Phantom Clan. I need some information. I want to know what happened to Dragon Lizard Star after we left. I hope you can use the power of the Phantom Clan to find my friend. I want her alive. As long as Audrey lived, Ming Hong was also there. They could find the way to come back to desolate territory. The sea domain was vast and the territories were endless. Shi Yang knew it would be a struggle to find Audrey on his own. If he couldn't find the entrance to the territory, he could only stay in the sea domain of nihility. His connection to Xia Xinyang, Yang Tian Emperor, and the others were going to be cut off. And now, Hui had emerged. He wondered what damages it had brought to desolate territory. He had to accumulate energy to change the structure of desolate territory in the future. My Ji was a powerful character of the Phantom Clan, and the Phantom Clan was one of the 7 great clans. Shi Yang even knew that they were the clan with the best and fastest intelligence. If he could use My Ji to get the information from the Phantom Clan, it would be much easier for him. Oh, an affectionate man. The corners of My Ji's mouth curled. She quieted down as the toughest matter that had troubled her the most lifted away. When she looked at Shi Yang now, she felt better. If you only need information, I can make a deal with you. On my phantom ancestors, I promise to do my best to find the information you need. Are you sure? I'm sure, Shiyang confirmed. My Ji didn't say anything. She threw one hand into the air while placing the other hand on her big breast before speaking the language of the Phantom Clan and her ancestors to pledge. She would keep her promise and find the information Shiyang needed. Deal, shouted Shiyang. In the next moment, he disappeared. After recovering from her bewilderment, she followed him. Nazorio and Bostos were forced into a valley between barren mountains. They were sieged in layers. The two looked tired and frightened. It seemed like they couldn't endure it for a long time. The little skeleton sat on the bone dragon and spoke the archaic language of the White Bone Clan to command the skeleton warriors to attack the others. Gradually, Nazorio and Bostos were slashed and bleeding hard. The remaining god power in their bodies was even less than my G's. Leave them to me. They are useful to wake up your parents. Ask your skeleton warriors to pay attention, Shiyang suddenly shouted and looked at the little skeleton. The skeleton was bewildered for a while but then nodded to him. As the little skeleton and my G didn't understand anything, Shiyang flew toward Nazorio and Bostos. Chapter 1410 Power Upanishad Superiority. Chapter 1410 Power Upanishad Superiority. Asterisk 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 asterisk. The little skeleton suddenly turned and screamed at Shiyang. He waved his white bone hand and asked Shiyang not to come close to Nazorio and Bostos. When my G was about to die, she could gather her energy and pay with her life to threaten Bostos not to come close to her. They were all at the peak of immortal realm. If they wanted to kill altogether because they couldn't have a chance to escape, the energy from their self-destruction was going to be enough to burst Shiyang into pieces. He told you not to come close. Be careful or else those two will drag you into their death pit together, my G screamed from a distance as she understood the little skeleton's language. Shiyang didn't change his visage or turn around to answer. Well, if they want to shatter the stone and the jade altogether, it won't work on warriors with space power Upanishad. My G was surprised. She thought and nodded as she finally agreed with Shiyang's confidence. If Shiyang could teleport as he had done to run away from her, even if Nazorio and Bostos wanted to self-detonate, it wasn't easy to kill Shiyang. Around 10 giant skeleton warriors were holding their massive sabers and surrounding the two devouring clan old men in the valley. Those bone sabers were so massive. As they swung the sabers, white light shot out. Those sabers had left many deep cuts like a spiderweb in this valley. Nazorio and Bostos had countless bleeding cuts. Some even reached their bones, which was very scary to see. We're finished this time. Nazorio wore an extremely grimaced face. He hid with Bostos in a corner and gritted his teeth, his eyes malicious. You don't know how intimidating he is and you have taken rash actions here. You've dragged me into this damn pit altogether. It's useless to say anything now, Bostos pulled himself together. We can't save our bodies. Let's wait for the chance to escape with our soul altars. We can use the corpse slaves out there. We will return to retaliate later. We don't have another choice then, Nazorio snorted. Until now, they had never thought that this battle could threaten their lives. They had thought that even if this Skull Island was more evil, they could leave whenever they wanted. Anyway, regardless of how terrifying the tricks that little skeleton was, they didn't see him have any treasure or power to destroy the soul altar. At their peak of immortal realm, it wasn't difficult to use the soul altar to escape. They hadn't done that yet because they thought that they could run away with their bodies. Shiyang was especially flying toward them and the skeleton warriors had loosened their besiege. Their eyes brightened as they exchanged looks. They thought that their chance had finally come. Although they now had only 10% of their power left, they were confident that they could deal with a junior warrior at first sky of immortal realm with that amount of energy. Nazorio squeezed the eyeball. Abruptly, it released evil and dark energy that rippled like water waves. Shiyang landed from the sky and looked at the coming waves. He rose his hand to grab them. The wisps of energy quietly disappeared. Nazorio was bewildered. He could feel the energy from his eyeball enter Shiyang's palm. This was impossible. The eyeball had used corpse chi as the foundation and it even had corrosive energy, which came his friend who cultivated corrosion power Upanishad. Shi Yang's palm received everything. How did he do that? Bostos' visage changed. He knew that something was wrong. He immediately sent his mysterious yin corpse worms by his feet to Shi Yang. Shi Yang grinned. The mysterious yin corpse worms seemed to sense a domineering aura. They unexpectedly retreated. Each of them flattened their bodies on the ground and shivered. The aura from Shi Yang's body made them instinctively fearful. It was the fear that was carved deeply in their life seal. They couldn't even think about resisting. Bostos and Nazorio gawked. They suddenly felt so chilled and they looked into the void instinctively. It seemed like a territory ancestor realm expert of their clan was hovering in the darkness and watching them. Only territory ancestor realm experts of the Devouring clan could have an aura with a beam of their ancestor Devour's aura, which could make the mysterious yin corpse worms crouch on the ground without daring to move. They looked at the sky and felt both fearful and happy as they thought that they were right. Far from them, Mai Ji's charming face was filled with surprise. She looked at the area and didn't know what was going on over there. Shi Yang was standing in front of Bostos and Nazorio, and the mysterious yin corpse worms were shivering under his feet. The eyeball in Nazorio's hand continued to release a halo, but it didn't affect Shi Yang at all. With her vision and knowledge, Mai Ji became puzzled. She didn't know what happened. However, at this moment, Shi Yang turned around and said to the little skeleton, "I have something I want to talk to them about. I don't want the others to overhear us. Don't worry. I can protect myself. Is it okay?" The little skeleton looked at him with strange eyes. He was baffled for almost a minute before riding the bone dragons away. The other dragon landed by Mai Ji. This gesture was like telling Mai Ji to leave too. Mai Ji was so indignant. She knew that Shi Yang wanted to talk to Nazorio and Bostos and it was crucial for her to understand him more. However, with Shi Yang's vigilance, she couldn't know the details, which made her upset and worried. Not far from them, the little skeleton hovered and looked at her. Under his gaze, she was frightened. After some cursing, she quietly sat down on the bone dragon. The bone dragon flew with her away. "Take the skeleton warriors with you too," Shi Yang pitched his voice again. As soon as he finished, the little skeleton spoke in its archaic language to command the skeleton warriors. Then, the huge skeletons jumped away from the valley. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The 3 bone thorns hissed and flew out, stabbing Nazorio's and Bostos' shoulders. Shi Yang had refined these 3 bone thorns a long time ago. They had the essence of space power Upanishad, so they could move freely between spaces. Using them to ambush the others often worked well. The bone thorns nailed the 2 Devouring clan monsters on the stone wall. They screeched in pain but shut up shortly after and just looked at the horizon. Shi Yang didn't know why they did that. He lifted his head to see and he even used dark energy to sense for a while. He found nothing. Noticing the other 2's moves when their eyes switched from the sky to the mysterious yin corpse worms, he understood. Nobody is there. Don't overthink it. Only I'm here. Previously, he had thought that the devouring power Upanishad could subdue the 8 great, evil power Upanishads. However, since he hadn't had a chance to fight against his fellows, he couldn't confirm it. Also, because he couldn't confirm that, he decided to stay nonchalantly when the 2 experts from the Devouring clan attacked Mai Ji and the skeleton. On the one hand, it was because he couldn't confirm if his assumption was right. On the other hand, Nazorio and Bostos had had full power at that time. Even if his power Upanishad was superior to the others, he couldn't stand against these 2 experts. But now, they had lost at least 90% of their god power and Shi Yang had finally confirmed that the devouring power Upanishad could subdue the other 8 evil power Upanishads. Thus, he became confident instantly. No one is there. Nazorio was puzzled. He didn't understand. He looked at the eyeball in his hand and then said coldly, "Then why did our power Upanishads, the corpse chi, and the erosive energy not affect you? First of all, your power is too weak. Second, ha ha ha." Shi Yang suddenly rose his hand. The negative energy included craziness, bloodthirstiness, brutality, and desperation that burst out. They shot out from his eyes and aimed at the other 2. At that moment, an endless blood sea with piles of corpses expanded in their eyes and tried to cover them. However, what made Shi Yang surprised was that Bastos and Nazorio didn't lose their minds. Instead, they looked as if they were frantically religious disciples. It's the picture of the Holy Land that our ancestor had left. It's the brain of our ancestor. What's going on? Shi Yang was bewildered upon hearing them. The illusion created by the negative energy had taken the blood sea of the bloodthirsty forces' Holy Land as the model. He had never expected that these two had called it the picture of their Holy Land and the brain of their ancestor. Shi Yang suddenly understood something and his face changed. He had visited the blood sea in the Holy Land. That mysterious black hole was unexpectedly the brain of Devour, the absolute beginning creature. Devour must have left something in the devouring clan before it left. The drawing of its brain was the picture of their Holy Land. It seemed like the relationship between the devouring clan and the bloodthirsty force was somehow close and marvelous. Anyway, the bloodthirsty force and Devour were predestined to not take the same path. Two blood-dripping hands emerged and blew Nazorio's and Bastos' chests. Shi Yang had seized the chance when their minds weren't stable to attack. Although it was despicable, it was safer for Shi Yang. Boom! Nazorio and Bastos had fallen into the deepest abyss of their life. They were so weak and they were distracted by Shi Yang's evil energy attack. They got hit and they started bleeding from the wounds on their chests. Until now, their bodies could not recover as they used to be. Death power Upanishad! Nazorio and Bastos shouted. They were more frightened. This junior warrior, they had ignored their deeds and their eyes were wide as they watched. They didn't know why Shi Yang could use their clan's power Upanishads, and they didn't know why the mysterious Yin corpse worms acted so cowardly when they saw Shi Yang. They couldn't figure it out no matter what. You can save your body and your soul can't run away. Don't do such useless things. I won't give you a chance, Shi Yang mercilessly struck them with his words. Chapter 1411, Shadow. Chapter 1411, Shadow. Who are you after all? Nazorio and Bastos shouted in unison. At this moment, their souls were trembling hard as if they could explode in any minute. Shi Yang was calm and natural. The energy fluctuating from the other two didn't affect him. He rose his left hand and placed it on Nazorio's chest. Something dark flashed and a black hole emerged. A powerful suction force appeared and absorbed Nazorio's vitality massively. I am from desolate territory. The master whose inheritance I received was called Bloodthirsty. Shi Yang hissed. Nazorio and Bastos were shaken hard. They were extremely terrified. You are the successor of that man. Desolate territory. Creatures living in desolate territory will all die. Haha, all of you will have a tragic death. Our plan is carried out. Our young master has went there. He'll kill all creatures in your desolate territory. Nazorio laughed and screamed crazily. He didn't care what Bastos thought. The vitality in his body erupted like a volcano. His soul altar was shattered into pieces in just a fragment of time. Shi Yang was chilled and he teleported away without thinking. Swoosh! He disappeared quickly. Boom! Boom! Two explosions happened one after another, sending a blood rain and pieces of flesh to the entire valley. It was the last shockwave from when the soul altars and bodies were destroyed. After that, Shi Yang reappeared in the valley. The blood downpour was like heavy rain. Everything in his vision was blood red. Nazorio and Bastos didn't leave anything. Pieces of their remains scattered around the valleys. The wisps of their essence chi and soul energy were vanishing and returning into earth and heaven. Shi Yang frowned. The black hole emerged above his head like a massive mouth that sucked the soul energy that hadn't dispersed. At the same time, his acupuncture points absorbed their essence chi. However, his face slowly darkened. Shi Yang hadn't thought that Nazorio could become so extreme after he knew Shi Yang was from desolate territory. He didn't say anything before he detonated his body and soul. Evidently, they knew Bloodthirsty and what was happening in desolate territory. Nazorio had exploded his own soul altar when he knew that Shi Yang knew devouring power Upanishad. He understood that if his soul altar remained, it would benefit Shi Yang later. Nazorio said that their young master had descended and he would kill all creatures in desolate territory. This had become a shadow in Shi Yang's heart. He knew that the said young master was probably the soul that came from the other world that Xian Shan had guided. That soul had carried out many dark plans. When Hui emerged, it had quietly sneaked away. Now, no one knew where it was. That man should be a sharp weapon that Devour and the Devouring clan had prepared with the goal of destroying Desolate. In the future, he was going to bring an endless catastrophe to Desolate territory. The Devouring clan had never ceased to find and invade Desolate territory. They didn't find the entrance, but they had used some secret techniques to send their young master's soul there. If that man had more time to grow. Shi Yang felt chilled inwardly. Flap, flap. The flapping sounds came from the bone wings. The little skeleton came together with Mai Ji on another dragon. They were bewilderedly looking at the gory valley and Shi Yang, who was immersed in his thoughts. The little skeleton and Mai Ji didn't bother him. Mai Ji's bright eyes sparkled with strange light, her beautiful face filled with fear. Nazorio and Bostos were at third sky of immortal realm. Although they didn't have much energy left, Shi Yang wasn't able to kill them. From this scene, they knew that Nazorio's and Bostos' soul altars exploded altogether. They were utterly dead. How could Shi Yang do that? She was so frightened. Shi Yang didn't give any explanation. After contemplating for a while, he lifted his head and looked at the little skeleton. "Let's go to your parents." The skeleton nodded. "Ah, right." Shi Yang frowned and said to Mai Ji. "You can understand the archaic language of the Whitebone clan. Give me the knowledge." As he didn't understand the Whitebone clan's language, he had to guess a lot while communicating with the little skeleton. It was really troublesome. Mai Ji could understand this language. Shi Yang thought that she could impart him the memory seal of languages like the warriors from the Heavenly Eye clan had done to him. "I can't transfer it to you. That skeleton doesn't use the current language of the Whitebone clan. It's really strange. My method is a single-use type. Unless we go to our Phantom clan, I can use the same tool to send you the knowledge of the language. We don't have any other option now." Mai Ji shook her head. "No other option? I'm afraid so." Shi Yang pondered and then said to the little skeleton, "Bring her with us. She can help us communicate." The skeleton nodded again. He could understand Shi Yang, but it was really bad that Shi Yang couldn't understand it. It was a problem. Mai Ji could solve this problem, so he agreed. The little skeleton rode the bone dragon and flew away while screaming. "He said that you and I can share the ride." Mai Ji's bold brows furrowed slightly. Shi Yang didn't say anything. He flew up and landed on the back of the snow-white bone dragon right behind Mai Ji. He extended his arms and clutched Mai Ji's round hips. Mai Ji's body stiffened. She suddenly recalled the moment Shi Yang was standing behind her and that humiliation. She felt so uncomfortable. Frowning, she hissed, "Can you stay a little away from me? This bone dragon isn't that small. Why are you leaning against me like this?" Shi Yang grinned and then laughed. His hands rubbed her waists. "What are you afraid of? Didn't you say you would serve me dedicatedly? Although our deal has changed, anyway, let me take a little advantage. It's your debt to pay. You're contemptible." Mai Ji cursed, her face cold and her body also getting icy. "Your condition isn't really good. If you continue using her energy, it will be very difficult for you to recover. You can even create permanent damages to your body. What do you think?" Shi Yang talked into her ears in a strange tone. Mai Ji shuddered and snarled, "What do you want after all? Help you steady your wounds." Shi Yang's voice became raw and cold. Then, his rude hand crawled to her lower abdomen. While Mai Ji was still puzzled, a warm air current quietly seeped into her body. That warm current carried a mysterious energy that acted like the mineral hot spring that ran through her lower abdomen and veins in her body. Miraculously, her damaged veins, body, and her consumed god power recovered. While that warm current moved around, Mai Ji's body turned into a beautiful pink hue. Her face blushed as if she was soaking her body in a warm lake. This feeling was so refreshing and comfortable. She was a little panicked. However, she didn't mind if Shi Yang's hand was placed in a sensitive part where he shouldn't be touching. He just enjoyed the cozy feeling and tried to heal her wounds faster. The beautiful scene didn't last for long. Soon, the bone dragons stopped and landed in the stone chamber inside the mountain where the little skeleton's parents were. The cozy feeling in Mai Ji's body disappeared when Shi Yang lifted his hand away. The warmth at her wounds and her lower abdomen disappeared. Waves of pain hit her again. She looked at his hand, her bright eyes yearning, but she couldn't say anything. It looked like she wanted that hand to stay there forever. She even forgot how embarrassing it was to have his hand placed on her belly. Shi Yang didn't look at her. Taking a deep breath, he said to the little skeleton, "Move your parents' bone bodies out." The little skeleton immediately took action. He was so tender as he was afraid that he could damage his parents' bodies. He carefully took out the 2 bone bodies from the coffin and lay them on the icy, rigid ground. Shi Yang frowned and placed his hands on the chests of the 2 bodies. The essence chi from Nazorio and Bostos was rapidly refined. He had sent a part to heal Mai Ji. And now, he was slowly pouring the remaining into the 2 bodies through the heart cores. After they were taken out of the stone coffins, the vitality that was poured in their heart cores didn't flow away anymore. The 2 heart cores were like sponges taking in Shi Yang's vitality. Shi Yang could feel that they were like an endless sea, and the amount of energy he had poured into them was like a grain of salt thrown into the sea. Still, they needed a lot to reach the brim. He was so surprised. He contemplated, and he knew that if this little skeleton's parents had their heart cores filled with energy, their energy would be thousands of times more abundant than the combined energy of Nazorio and Bostos in their best condition. They were absolutely existences at the territory ancestor realm. Instinctively, he turned to look at the little skeleton. This child was lucky. The 2 parents at the territory ancestor realm had put a lot of efforts to refine it. And perhaps, only the White Bone clan parents at such a level could give birth to this marvelous child. Time flew fast. After an unknown time, Shi Yang had sent all the vitality that he had refined from Nazorio's and Bostos' energy to the heart cores of the 2 bone bodies. Retracting his hand, Shi Yang observed the heart cores of the 2 bodies and found no change. However, the brown-grey bone bodies seemed to get a little shinier. Asterisk 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 asterisk. The little skeleton was stunned. Looking at the small change on his parents, he waved his hand and tried to say something. "It asked you if its parents could wake up or not," explained Mai Ji. Shi Yang contemplated for a long while. Then, he looked at the little skeleton with yearning ears and said, "If we do it this way, theoretically, we can wake up your parents. However, we need a huge amount of vitality. The energy I've poured into them is still very little. It requires a lot more to wake your parents." Asterisk 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 asterisk. The little skeleton's eyes were filled with grief. After a long time, it spoke again. "It asked you, do you have any method to make it faster?" said Mai Ji. Shi Yang contemplated again. "What method would make this faster?" "There's a method, indeed. However, that method was built on bloody slaughter. It required countless lives." Chapter 14:12, The Sea of Annihilation. Chapter 14:12, The Sea of Annihilation. In a remote corner of the dark, cold sea domain of nihility, a small ash-grey island was moving quickly and heading to the Sea of Annihilation. Although it looked as if it was moving slowly, after each flash, it crossed billions of miles. Taking a closer look at that island was like looking at a massive skull with empty sockets and a big, dark mouth that was like deep tunnel. It was Skull Island. On a barren hill was Shi Yang and Mai Ji sitting and watching the void. "This Skull Island is much more marvelous than I thought. Currently, the members of the White Bone clan couldn't build such a massive Skull Island. Only noble members of the clan could build Skull Islands and use them as big, moving weapon like a battleship. Anyway, this Skull Island can defend and attack perfectly. It can even conjure bone slaves. I have never heard about such a marvelous weapon before. Mai-ji didn't look very pale. She had slowly recovered. However, she still needed a lot of time to recover to her best condition. Shi Yang listened to her quietly and didn't say anything. 3 years ago, in the cave inside the Skull Island, Shi Yang, Mai-ji, and the little skeleton had agreed to come to the Sea of Annihilation. Shi Yang knew he could use the devouring power Upanishad to swallow an abundant amount of vitality to revive the skeleton's parents. However, he didn't propose this method. Mai-ji suggested that the little skeleton should find the members of the Whitebone clan. She thought that if they knew that they had 2 precursors who were dormant like this, they would try their best to wake them up. The little skeleton said that he had never met any member of the Whitebone clan before. After he was born, he had always stayed and watched over the Skull Island. The Skull Island was mysterious. If it turned on its defense, it could prevent the soul consciousness from detecting it or turn invisible. Its power was like dark energy. In these recent years, the little skeleton had always protected his parents here. Deep in his soul, his parents had left a message before they died. They asked him not to contact others before it could reach the territory ancestor realm. He remembered and followed his parents' last wish, trying to hide the skull skeleton to not contact the outside warriors. After many years of concealing, he had never met any member of the Whitebone clan. Bostos had the precise direction, so he came here. Shi Yang had gotten here by chance. According to Mai-ji, the Whitebone clan experts had based in the Sea of Annihilation. As long as they could find the Whitebone clan experts, they could receive help from them to revive the skeleton's parents. Shi Yang knew about the Sea of Annihilation through the heavenly fantasy star compass. When he and Audrey parted, he told her to meet up at the Sea of Annihilation. Thus, he also wanted to go there. Mai-ji was one of the Phantom Clan's leaders who based in the Sea of Annihilation. Before she had gone to Dragon Lizard Star, she had always been there. She had come to Dragon Lizard Star to recruit the Water Tribe and exchange for forefather Dragon Lizard's immortal pellets. As things were done, she had to return to the Sea of Annihilation. As they had the same destination, after they agreed with each other, the little skeleton followed Mai-ji's direction to drive the Skull Island. The island was now a floating battleship that headed to the Sea of Annihilation. Shi Yang stroked the heavenly fantasy star compass. Tu Shi of the mysterious Sky Clan had given him a marvelous compass. Not only did it have special landmarks, but it also had time measurements. It was 3.5 years after he had parted with Audrey. It seemed to have been a long time. However, to the warrior at his realm, it was just like a blink of an eye. The heavenly fantasy star compass showed the directions and provided a brief introduction of the Sea of Annihilation. The Sea of Annihilation was one of the big trading zones for creatures in Sea Domain of Nihility. It was similar to a big market, anyway. The experts from many clans often visited this place. However, there was no detailed description of this place. Anyway, the heavenly fantasy star compass was just a compass. It was more important that it showed the exact locations and time. Honestly, this is the first time I came to the Sea Domain of Nihility. My knowledge of the Sea Domain of Nihility is not very wide. I've heard about the Sea of Annihilation, but I don't know what it's actually. You said that we are pretty close to it. Can you tell me more details? Shi Yang turned to Mai-ji. Shi Yang had stayed inside the Skull Island to cultivate, steady his immortal realm, and quench his power Upanishad. Mai-ji suddenly woke him up. Then, he left the cave and flew out of the skull's mouth to get onto the surface of the island. I had underestimated this Skull Island. It's even faster than when I fly at my max speed. It's worth being the divine weapon that the 2 territory ancestor realm experts had built. Mai-ji generously complimented. At this speed, we will at least enter the Sea of Annihilation after half a month. Right, I should tell you some information about the Sea of Annihilation. In this Sea Domain of Nihility, not many inhabited continents are complete. This place used to be the center in the absolute beginning era. Because of the Great War, it was destroyed. This place has so many shattered stars, continents, mountains, and lakes. The Sea of Annihilation is strange and miraculous. It's actually an endless sea. The area of this sea can be as big as an entire sea area in a territory. It's extremely vast. The Sea of Annihilation has many small islands and continents. There are as many as stars in the sky. The Sea of Annihilation is very deep. At our realm, I'm afraid that we can't go too deep. The bottom of the Sea of Annihilation is one of the most mysterious areas in the sea domain of nihility. Rumors say that the seabed still has some divine weapon from the absolute beginning era because it used to be the battlefield of the Great War at that time. Currently, many creatures and warriors in the sea domain of nihility are exploring the Sea of Annihilation. Sometimes, they find broken divine weapons or marvelous treasures, or even the seal of power Upanishads. They are all powerful and magical, which can help the experts reach the territory ancestor realm. That's why the Sea of Annihilation is always a delicious pie in the explorer's eyes. Many races live on the islands in the Sea of Annihilation. They have considered the Sea of Annihilation as their homeland. Every second, warriors are entering the sea or trying to explore the seabed to find the vestiges of the absolute beginning era. The 7 great clans also sent their hotshots to base in the Sea of Annihilation. To them, the Sea of Annihilation is an arena. Mai Ji looked at the dark area ahead of them as if she was watching the real Sea of Annihilation. She slowly explained many things to Shi Yang and then concluded. That area has a lot of excellent encounters, but it's also very dangerous. It's a bustling, chaotic area. Low-realm warriors can be easily killed. I'm reminding you. Be more cautious when we get there. There are some people even the 7 great clans have to be afraid of. You better behave and be humble. When your identity as a warrior with a wisp of a soul from an absolute beginning creature is exposed, even our phantom clan can't protect you. Shi Yang discolored. The intimidating experts that even the 7 great clans have to be afraid of? There are many experts without a clan or a force. Perhaps they are the last members of their races. However, they are very powerful. They often go there alone. If they reach the territory ancestor realm, do you think they won't be intimidating? Mai Ji forced a smile. Shi Yang was terrified. There are territory ancestor realm experts there? Mai Ji nodded. They are hiding in the areas where we can hardly sense or even in the sea. They come for the mysterious things undersea. Rumors say that someone has found the vestiges from the absolute beginning era where the ultimate secret of earth and heaven is hiding. It's so attractive to the territory ancestor realm experts. How vast is the Sea of Annihilation? Shi Yang was astounded. Mai Ji pondered for a while and then said, the sea surface is as big as an entire star area. It has dozens of thousands of islands. Many of them are barren and not suitable for cultivating or living. A few of them are suitable for low-realm warriors to stay and cultivate in. However, there are larger, deeper areas. There's a way to imagine it. An expert with profound space power Upanishad used to measure it carefully. He said that the Sea of Annihilation looks like an upside-down funnel and the sea surface is the bottom of that funnel. Getting deeper, the sea would get bigger. He said that the real area of the seabed could be hundreds of times bigger than the surface. It's hard to imagine, right? Shi Yang was puzzled like a wooden chicken. A funnel. A funnel has a narrow bottom and a wide top. If that expert with space power Upanishad was correct that the surface of the Sea of Annihilation was as big as a star area, how big was the sea bottom? As big as a territory? As big as the desolate territory? It was just a sea in the sea domain of nihility, and it was so vast that Shi Yang was really astounded. Don't be surprised. The vast universe has countless territories and lands. The sea domain of nihility is the center of this cosmos. It's not strange if it has some mysterious and marvelous areas. Mai Ji's voice was relaxing. Her bright eyes rolled and she asked all of a sudden, I'm curious. What method did you use to kill Nazorio and Bostos? How could you send the vitality to me? Shi Yang became cautious immediately. He snorted, our deal doesn't include digging up each other's secrets. I will figure it out sooner or later. Mai Ji gritted her teeth. She frowned and then said, I don't know why you wanted to help that little child from the Whitebone clan. What could it give you? Do you think that if you save his parents, they will appreciate you a lot and become part of your strong background? Do you know how much vitality it requires to revive his parents? Shi Yang pondered for a while and didn't say anything. He couldn't tell the reason either. He was just compassionate for that little skeleton. The grief and yearning that the little skeleton had for his parents, his sorrow, and his helpless feelings had touched a soft spot in Shi Yang's heart. It made him not consider pros and cons as he always did. He just immediately helped the little child without any condition. He couldn't explain it to Mai Ji, and he knew that Mai Ji wouldn't buy it if he explained his compassion for the kid to her. In the Sea of Annihilation, I am also a character. What I've promised you, I will fulfill. As long as your woman comes to the Sea of Annihilation and exposes her location, I'm sure we can find her. Our Phantom clan is famous for taking intelligence in this sea domain of nihility, said Mai Ji. Then thanks in advance, said Shi Yang. Chapter 1413, Waiting for a Man. Chapter 1413, Waiting for a Man _ Deep in the Sea of Annihilation. There was an island floating above the sea. It had many big trees that made it look like a black water lily. The trees on this island were so huge that they were like high mountains. They were as thick as a meadow. The island had so many different colored flags, which had many drawings of resentful souls and wailing ghosts. Those flags flew with the wind like a bunch of ghosts and demons screaming and hissing. Deep in the center of the lush forest were many rooms made of dry trees. Most of them were closed, and only a few of them had human footmarks. At this moment, a warrior of the Soul Clan was kneeling in front of the door of a lodge and speaking in the language of the Soul Clan to report, "Teacher, we got news." "Come in," a senile, male voice came out from the room. The Soul Clan warrior respectfully stepped in. It was a plain room with more flags on the walls. The brocade flags here all had drawings of wailing ghosts and resentful souls. Just like the main power Upanishad of the Soul Clan, they felt dark and horrible. A haggard, old man with many wrinkles on his face was sitting on a cattail hassock. He was wearing a thick black robe that shrouded his thin body of a dry corpse. He looked as if he would die in the next minute. However, his eyes were like a cold water pond at night. They were deep and cold, and they didn't show human emotions. "We got news. Singh was killed on Dragon Lizard Star." Forefather Dragon Lizard had joined hands with Tu Shiqi and Yun of the mysterious Sky Clan. The Dragon Lizard Clan announced that they officially become a dependent clan of the mysterious Sky Clan, reported the young warriors who had reached second sky of Immortal Realm. "Singh was so incompetent. He borrowed your soul refining cauldron and still failed." The old man was as calm as usual. It seemed like he had predicted this result beforehand. "Continue. I want more details." The young man pulled a serious countenance and reported the details of the battle that took place on Dragon Lizard Star. The old man quietly listened to him. After a while, he looked surprised. "Oh, a junior with the soul clone of an absolute beginning creature. Interesting. If we can merge his soul to the soul refining cauldron, it will significantly contribute to healing the cauldron. Yeah, I'm sure it's not less than Forefather Dragon Lizard's soul." Then, he opened his mouth. Something emerged from the tip of his tongue. Surprisingly, it was the soul refining cauldron that had stirred up the entire Dragon Lizard Star. This divine weapon from the absolute beginning era had disappeared discreetly after the battle on Dragon Lizard Star ended. It had returned to this old man's tongue. He spurted it out. The soul refining cauldron flew out and enlarged massively, floating above the island. So many complicated but exquisite absolute beginning era symbols on the cauldron's surface revived at the same time. They turned into twisted, evil ghost faces that moved around the cauldron. Flows of souls flew out of so many brocade flags on the island. Once the souls left, the drawings on the flags also left. From the bird's view, thousands of departed souls and ghosts were silently getting into the soul refining cauldron, and the cauldron took them all in. The absolute beginning era symbols on the cauldron surface became stranger and more mysterious after the cauldron had received more souls. It was now filled with enormous energy. Not long afterward, the ghosts and evil souls kept in the brocade flags on the island were all gone. They were the souls that the old man had recently collected. His eyes flashed and the soul refining cauldron became much smaller. He swallowed it right after that. I still need a lot, the old man mumbled. Pondering for a while, he turned to the young man, his eyes sinister. Tate, you know why I came to the Sea of Annihilation this time. You've been in this area for years. You should know what to do to satisfy me. The young man of the Soul Clan shivered inwardly. He put on a solemn face and said quickly, Teacher, don't worry. I know what to do. You need war and death. That's how you collect the souls. I'm on it. The old man grinned contentedly, his grin evil and eccentric. You're my good disciple. Anyway, it's not easy to trigger a war in the Sea of Annihilation. Even if we, the Soul Clan, want to do that, we'll need a cause or an excuse. I hope you can arrange things properly. Don't let the other clans catch our tail. They will say our Soul Clan broke the rules. Our general commander was murdered. It's not a bad cause. I'm going to take care of it, said Tate. The old man nodded and then looked at the ground underneath. It seemed like his eyes could pierce through the island to watch something in the sea. Remember, don't bother the old freak underneath. Otherwise, it will be very troublesome. Understood. A small island floated in a remote corner of the Sea of Annihilation had thunderstorms wreck the place year-round. Apparently, it wasn't a good island for creatures to live on. Low-realm warriors buried their bodies here. They had to reach the immortal realm to stay intact on this island. Audrey stood alone on a barren mountain on the island and looked afar. She had come to the Sea of Annihilation 6 months ago. Right after she had arrived, she decided to choose a remote island to stay in. This area had harsh conditions and it was almost isolated. Not many people would notice this island. After they had parted, she had followed Tu Shichi's direction to come to the Sea of Annihilation alone. She had encountered some dangers on the way. She had killed all the warriors who had approached her with malicious attempts. She had reached third sky of incipient God realm. Every day, she made good progress. Also, she still had an immortal pellet. If she had enough time, she could reach the immortal realm soon. Because she had merged with Ming Hong's soul and taken in the Sing's 7 brutal souls, she had accumulated such attainment. She also understood the cultivating techniques of the Soul Clan. The Soul Clan was a peculiar race that mainly cultivated the Soul Altar. Their understanding of the Soul Altar had surpassed many other great clans. Imperial Dark Tribe was rumored to be the clan that Desolate had created with the Soul Clan as the model. Imperial Dark Tribe had similar physical and metal features as the Soul Clan. Even their cultivating techniques were similar. Tu Shichi gifted her the souls of the Soul Clan and Sing was the Soul Clan's general commander. After she had refined those souls, Audrey now had a deep understanding of the Soul Altar Power Upanishad of the Soul Clan. Her realm could increase rapidly. Ming Hong and those brutal souls could make up for her insufficient power. They were her source of energy. To break through the realm, the warriors needed to accumulate energy and develop a deeper understanding of power Upanishads. When these two weren't a problem, it was natural that Audrey could become stronger fast. Audrey's thoughts flickered and so many souls emerged by her. This cluster of ghosts consisted of thousands of resentful souls and ghosts. They gathered in clusters, which were massive and terrifying. Ming Hong, the brutal soul, was the master of those souls. He turned into his appearance when he was still alive, which was an elder of Imperial Dark Tribe. The entrance to our territory is right under a current at the seabed of the Sea of Annihilation. It's an isolated area, indeed. That year, I came through the entrance and I was lost by the edge of the Sea of Annihilation's seabed. When I got out, I was in another area. Audrey frowned. After you were gone, there were many people at the immortal realm in our desolate territory. They could go to the sea domain of nihility through the territory entrance too. However, they have never met any creature in the sea domain of nihility. Do you think it's strange? According to you, the Sea of Annihilation is really vast and countless creatures have come here. How could they not have met any of them? Ming Hong forced a smile. Because we were wrong and those who came later took the wrong way too. Audrey looked as if she wanted to ask for more information. Perhaps you can't imagine it. Actually, the Sea of Annihilation is connected to our desolate territory. The entrance to the territory is right at the border. The entrance is where our territory meets the sea domain of nihility. There are vast seas on both sides of the barriers. We have to get through a sea to get to the sea domain of nihility. Also, when we get through the sea, we will meet a river that leads to a terrifying, massive ocean. Ming Hong saw her baffled, so he rose his hands to gather a group of souls to sketch a map. At first, he drew a massive sea. From the sea as the center, he drew more rivers, which connected to the big sea. Those rivers flow to the Sea of Annihilation. In some aspects, they are parts of the Sea of Annihilation. After we get through the territory entrance, we don't have to follow the river to the Sea of Annihilation. No one has gotten to the seabed of the sea domain of nihility because it was impossible to do that. We couldn't endure the terrible water pressure under the sea. On the way, we took a branch that led to the other areas far away from the Sea of Annihilation. They were relatively safe areas in the sea domain of nihility. Anyway, they are the remote areas where we rarely saw any footmarks. The area I arrived on is a desolate corner of the sea domain of nihility, which is pretty far from the Sea of Annihilation. It doesn't have many creatures living on it. I thought that the other warriors from Desolate Territory came here after I also arrived at the isolated areas where there were no footprints. Only one expert had taken the right way as soon as he had entered the sea domain of nihility. He got through the Sea of Annihilation's seabed and emerged on the surface of the Sea of Annihilation. Ming Hong wore a strange face. "Who is he?" asked Audrey. "Bloodthirsty." He was the only one who had followed the right route through the river to the seabed of the Sea of Annihilation after crossing the territory in trance because his power and realm were enough to endure the terrifying water pressure there. He figured out the ideal way and emerged from the seabed to the surface. He appeared in the friendly, lively area of the sea domain of nihility. Ming Hong showed his respect and sighed, "I know this through Sing's research. I know he was here for a short time. The Devouring clan had fought against him once. He had killed many of them. He had even battled against Han Tien of the mysterious Sky Clan. I heard that he won. However, Sing didn't know his real identity. Bloodthirsty had subdued our Imperial Dark Tribe and stopped us from thriving for 10,000 years. Anyway, with his competence, he had topped our territory." Audrey also respected the expert. "I know the location of the territory entrance. I can take you out of here and return to Desolate Territory. I've been waiting for that day. But I don't know what makes you hesitant. You've been here for half a year. What are you waiting for?" Ming Hong was clueless. "I'm waiting for a man. He and I will return together," answered Audrey. "You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.